Thank you. With that, I will call to order this meeting of the Town of Ledyard Planning and Zoning Commission. It is Thursday, September 9th, 2021 at 7 p.m. This is a remote meeting hosted over Zoom. I'll do the roll call. Mr. Boudreau?
Present.
Mr. Cherry?
Here.
Ms. Scanlon?
Here.
Mr. Wood is excused with a medical issue. We send him our best wishes. Mr. Woody, the chair, is here. Mr. Capon?
Here.
Mr. Whitescarver? Okay, also present is Juliet Hodges, the town planner. Mr. Capon, I will seat you for the absent Mr. Wood this evening. Are there any citizens petitions? This is comments from the public on non-agenda items. If you wish to speak, please unmute your line, state your name and address, and then speak your piece, please.
James Arak, spokesperson for Christie Hill Condos, 1530.
So if you are here to speak on the application for the zone change, I'll ask you to hold your comments to the public hearing for that, and you'll have a time to speak at that point. If you have comments on some other issue, please continue.
Just on the zone change, thank you.
Okay, great. Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll move on. We have no changes to the agenda. Only comment I'll make at this point is the town did get its grant, the technology grant, to get some new technology in the town hall annex to be able to host hybrid and remote meetings from the town hall annex. And so we received the money for that, I think maybe 3 weeks ago. So my current hope is that our October meeting, we will be able to host that at least as a hybrid meeting from the town hall annex. As we get to that point, you'll certainly get communication from myself and staff about how that will operate. First up on our agenda is I will reopen the public hearing for application PZ 21-08, map 1528, Route 12, Gales Ferry. Zone map change to extend the Gales Ferry Design District Zone 200 feet to include the subject property. This public hearing is continued from our August 12th meeting. I'll start off. There are two new exhibits. Exhibit number 14 is a memo for the record from Juliet Hodge, Director of Planning. This is dated September 9th, 2021. I will not read this memo. I'm sure everyone has had a chance to read it. It does describe the application and most importantly, the differences between the CIP zone and the Gales Ferry Design District Zone, which is what we are considering tonight. Exhibit number 15 is an email that contains several letters from citizens. I will read in those individual letters. So the first letter is from Jim Ulrich, Unit C30. Dear Planning and Zoning Commission, the package as filed at Town Hall has an exhibit dated June 2021 showing the intent of the proposed zone change is for the use of the property as a tap room / dog park. As such, we, the neighboring residents and the Honorable Commission are all allowed to take into account the intended use of the property. We respectfully ask that the Commission do so. Letter 2 is from Deborah Ranquist in Unit C25, as well as James Ulrich, Unit C30. Dear Honorable Planning and Zoning Commission, as concerned Ledyard residents, we discussed how everyone feels regarding the zoning change for 1528 CT12. The application filed at Ledyard Town Hall shows the proposed zone change and a filed intent to then enable the business folks to develop a dog-friendly family pub and park, also as noted by previous Town Hall minutes. Online records show 1528 Route 12 with a business referencing Dogs and Brew. It does sound nice and friendly. We like it. We enjoy beer and love animals, no issues. There are many implications of zoning changes. Our main concern is the negative impact of alcohol on our town and village and intended to soon be in the middle of our neighborhood if the zoning change is approved. Unfortunately, in Gales Ferry, Ledyard, and neighboring town, many adults suffer from disorders or the inability to control themselves when under the influence of alcoholic beverages. There are plenty of public records showing that our town and village and the neighboring municipalities all have police logs recording driving under the influence, domestic abuse, family spousal breakup, children being removed from their homes, and even sexual assault in the neighboring community, all directly tied to alcoholic beverage consumption, as noted in police logs and media. Alcohol is not conducive to family environments and not compatible with a residential zone, and certainly not compatible with the nice small town environment of Ledyard. 1528 Route 12 and the old closed animal hospital and lots next to it are all surrounded by homes and complexes inhabited by hardworking residents that need to feel at ease, families with babies, children, disabled, elderly, and retired people. Wish the entrepreneur success, but not here, please. Letter 3 is from Charlene Sanders, Unit 24. My name is Charlene Sanders. I live at Unit 24 in Christie Hill Condos. I am president of the condo board. My husband and I are okay to a dog park, but will vote no to any alcohol in that area. Also, I talked to Mrs. Scully a few weeks ago, and she said no alcohol was going to be there. So as I said, if a pub or liquor store comes there, we will vote no. Letter 4 is from Gail and David Oko, Unit C26, to whom it may concern. I own Unit C26, and I agree that building a proposed brew pub and dog park will create disturbances from the large number of cars, music, and general noise. This business will bring property values down in the immediate surrounding area, and Christie Hill condominiums are in close proximity. Letter number 5 is from Dorothy Burgess in Unit A4. I would love to just have a dog park, but when you start changing the village setting, which we have right now, when the deer come out at night and the birds are always chirping, you can never go back. As it is now, cigarette butts are thrown all over with liquor bottles scattered on Route 12, just 2 houses away. No, I'm not in favor of a pub because that only worsens this type of environment. With that, that is all of the new exhibits. At this point, I'll ask Mr. Sweeney, who is the attorney for the applicant, to present the application. Mr. Sweeney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Great.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Bill Sweeney. I am a partner and a land use attorney with the T-Corps law firm of New London. And it's a pleasure to appear before you again tonight. I certainly appreciate the fact that the commission granted me the courtesy last month to continue this public hearing so that I could actually attend. And I just wanted to thank you again for that courtesy extended to me. I'm here tonight on behalf of Sarah and Patrick Scully of Waterford, Connecticut, who have entered into a purchase contract to acquire a vacant 3.9 acre lot located at 1528 Route 12 in Gales Ferry. And if you page down through your the different attendants tonight, you can see that Sarah and Patrick are both joining us as well. This evening, we appear before you seeking a zone map change to rezone this subject parcel of land on Route 12 from your commercial industrial district, which you know also as the CIP zone, to the Gales Ferry Design District, which is known as the GFDD Zone. It's my client's intent, and as you may have heard through the emails that I apparently were submitted today, but we weren't unaware of, it is my client's intent, if the zone change is approved, to return to you in the coming months for site plan approval for the development of a dog-friendly craft beer tavern with an outdoor patio and a fenced area that will eventually be used as a dog park. This project is quite similar with dog-friendly pubs and breweries that have been built around the country. You may have visited some of these. There's some already here in Connecticut, but there's certainly throughout the country. They've been incredibly successful, and my clients as young entrepreneurs have dreamed about building one of these facilities in southeastern Connecticut for some time now. The Scullys live locally, as I said, in Waterford, and they believe that Ledyard, and this lot in particular, is a perfect location for this type of use, which will have limited days and hours of operation. That being said, I want to make a point that I think is really critical for your review tonight, and that is, it's for your review, but also for the benefit of the public, and that is tonight that the project that we're envisioning has not been fully designed. This is not a site plan application meeting. We don't have a plan to present to you tonight. And quite frankly, it's not the appropriate time to discuss the specifics of a tavern or any outdoor facilities in any detail. But we share the vision that we have with you, so we're transparent on why we're seeking the zoning map change. Tonight, the public hearing before you, your charge as a planning and zoning commission is limited to a single issue, and that is the proposed zone map change that we've put forward. Our application is fairly straightforward, but I am required to build a record tonight as this is a public hearing. I'm going to try to do so quickly and in an efficient manner because I know you have other items on your agenda. I would note for the record that all public notice requirements of the meeting have been met, including notice to abutting property owners as required by your zoning regulations. I'm going to provide you some brief background on the parcel. I'm going to highlight some key differences between the existing designation in the CIP zone and the proposed GFDD or Gales Ferry Design District zone. And I'm going to further detail for you why a zone change for this parcel, which sits on the boundary between these two zones, really makes good planning sense. Both Sarah and Patrick are here on the call tonight if you have any specific questions that I can't readily answer. But again, I would ask Mr. Woody and the rest of the commission to hope that we can stay focused on the issue of the zone map change and not allow ourselves to be led off tangent regarding a future site plan application that isn't designed and isn't before the commission. We are anxious to close on the property later this year and break ground on the project. We'll need additional necessary approvals from the town, likely wetlands approval in addition to P&Z approval. But this zone map change tonight is really just the first step in the process. And it's hopefully a step that we'll take with you at the conclusion of this evening. If it's okay with the commission, and if I have permission, I'd like to just share one of the exhibits that's in the record on the screen. Is that acceptable, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, absolutely. Deb, which one do you want? And Deb can pull it up for you.
Oh, that's great. If she could exhibit number 9, the street view. Great, thank you. So the photo that I'm displaying for you is exhibit 9 in the record, is displaying the street view of the property from Route 12 looking south. And as I mentioned before, the property that we're talking about is off to the left, that heavily wooded and sort of overgrown property. It encompasses just under 4 acres of land, and it's located on the easterly side of Route 12. You may have driven by it. There's been a realty sign on it for some time, and there's been a number, as I understand it, proposals for the development of this parcel over the last couple of decades. It's been empty and underutilized and vacant for a considerable amount of time. As you can see, the property is heavily wooded, it's overgrown. But there is a rough access way, which right now has been cleared recently from Route 12 into a cleared area at the center of the lot. Deb, if you could switch now to Exhibit A, which is the aerial photo. Exhibit 8. Thank you. Terrific. So if you can see in the center of your picture, there's sort of a rectangular shaped parcel. It says 3.87 AC acres. That is the parcel in question that we're looking to change the zone on. There is some wetlands at the front of the parcel. And to the east of the parcel toward Long Hill Road, and actually off onto the next parcel, there's some additional wetland areas as well. But the center of the site, where there is a cleared area on this aerial photo, is actually quite suitable for development. And we've already done test pits to confirm this fact. The neighborhood that surrounds this site, as you're probably aware if you're familiar with this area, is quite varied and has a mix of established uses. To the west, directly across Route 12, is a medical office building. There's also a small church and then an animal hospital. To the north, there's immediately to the north at 1532, there's a single family house. And then the rest of the northern property line is shared with excess land associated with a small multifamily condominium complex. You can see that there's a thick buffer vegetation that exists between that property to the north and this property. To the east, as I said, there are some significant wetlands sort of on the parcel directly to the east of this site. But beyond that are more residences on Long Cove Road and actually some mobile homes as well. And to the south, directly at 1524, is the vacant veterinary practice. You're probably familiar with that building. And then as you go south, there's additional commercial uses. There's a convenience store and there's self-storage as you head south down 12, deeper into the CIP or commercial industrial zone. I think this photograph provides significant evidence that this is a mixed-use neighborhood. And within it, there are well-established commercial uses and industrial uses directly to the south. Deb, if we can now, I'd like to shift to Exhibit 10, which is the zoning map. Terrific, thank you. If you can just maybe page down just slightly so that we can see a little bit more of the map. Yeah, that's perfect right there. So 1528 is highlighted. It's got a yellow circle around it. It shows the parcel. And currently, as I said before, it is zoned. It's part of the CIP district, but it abuts directly just south of the Gales Ferry Design District. Interestingly enough, and I think this is talked about in your staff report, this parcel was actually part of the Gales Ferry Design District up until 2016, when the commission approved a zone map change for the current owner to shift it south into the CIP zone. So this property, while it's zoned CIP, was GFDD, and that was done for a project that never actually materialized. Essentially, our application, the application before you tonight, is to effectively undo the 2016 map change and restore the property back to the original GFDD designation. Now, in terms of these zones, the CIP and the GFDD are similar in some respects, as they do have a number of common uses that are permitted within them. And however, there are also some very important and stark differences between the zones, and differences that, quite frankly, that require us to seek the zone change for our proposed use of the property. You do have a staff report, I know, that's been submitted into the record, and Ms. Hodge has done a really nice job, as usual, highlighting these similarities and differences between the two zones. But the most critical distinction, at least for my client, is that alcoholic liquor uses in parks and playgrounds are not permitted in the CIP, but just over the boundary within the GFDD, they are. And that's fundamentally the reason why we need the zone map change. But perhaps more importantly for your consideration tonight, the commercial industrial district, which is shown in red here on this map, is a very traditional and essentially industrial zoning district that allows a wide array of fairly intensive uses. Things like automobile service and repair, hospitals, industrial parks, light industrial buildings, manufacturing facilities, storage and warehousing, and even sawmills and lumber yards. These uses are almost exclusively permitted as of right without any significant limitations or controls. But the Gales Ferry Design District, the district that we're seeking to rezone this property into, on the other hand, is a completely different type of district with a far more rigorous set of provisions and standards. As you know, the purpose of the Gales Ferry Design District is to encourage pedestrian-friendly commercial development of a unified design and scale to create a better Gales Ferry village. And these regulations are also intended to attract and encourage a variety of activities and a blend of low-intensity commercial, civic, and residential architectures and uses. The GFDD regulations encourage superior architectural and site design, connectivity with adjacent uses, and to create a more neighborhood feel to new commercial development in town. The uses that are permitted in the GFDD, which aren't necessarily permitted in the CIP, include things like small retail and service businesses, multifamily housing, restaurants, cultural uses, parks, and mixed-use developments. Now, we recognize that the GFDD has much tougher design standards than the CIP, But that makes sense because the whole idea of the GFDD district is to promote new commercial development that can be part of a greater neighborhood. And we believe our desired use fits perfectly within that neighborhood as an amenity in this overall scheme. In fact, quite frankly, from our perspective, the zone map change of the parcel from CIP to Gales Ferry Design District will indirectly protect nearby residential properties from some of the more intense and potentially objectionable uses that are already permitted as of right in the commercial industrial district. I would also argue tonight for you that our application is also consistent with your plan of conservation and development. This property has sat vacant and fallow for literally decades. One of the key components of your plan is to encourage the development or the redevelopment of vacant and underutilized commercial and industrial properties throughout the community. The property has been vacant, overgrown for as long as anybody can remember, and this rezoning will allow for an exciting and compatible neighborhood scale development. Moreover, the plan that you've adopted encourages the expansion of the Gales Ferry Design District to encourage more attractive, compatible, and well-planned development in this town. Moving the zoning boundary just one lot to the south does just that. And it's notable again that just 5 years ago, this lot was already part of the Gales Ferry Design District. So the ask that we have is relatively modest. Finally, as we intend to not only create a tavern, but an outdoor recreation area, the zone change could also encourage outdoor recreational opportunities for both residents and visitors to the community, another aspect and component of your adopted plan of conservation and development. Now, with all that being said, we do acknowledge that some neighbors, particularly the condominium complex directly to the north of this project, may have some concerns about our specific project, and therefore they may have some reservations. I think you heard them tonight about the zoning map change that we're requesting. After we received the initial email from the condominium complex last month, we elected to go meet with some of the neighbors, to listen to them, to understand their concerns, and try to allay some of those concerns as well. And certain issues that were raised, issues of privacy, noise, and buffering, are all legitimate. We certainly feel we can address all of them at the proper time in the process as we move towards site plan approval. As we showed on the aerial, there's a significant vegetative buffer to the north of the property. We intend to preserve and protect that. And regardless of the use of this property, whether we develop it for a tavern and a dog park or any of the other uses in the GFDD, there is substantial already existing buffer and screening to that specific development. We also recognize that you can't always please everyone. And even if you go and meet with neighbors, sometimes neighbors just don't support your project. But I would really urge the commission to consider that the proposed GFDD designation for this property actually protects the integrity of this neighborhood far more than maintaining the current commercial industrial district zoning that doesn't have any of the same standards or provisions, protections, or limitations. And again, from our perspective, a rezone of this property to propose neighborhood-friendly uses, perhaps a tavern and a dog park, as we're proposing, with architectural and design controls, we think is a far less adverse situation than the ability of another developer to develop much more intensive uses that are allowed in the CIP, like a sawmill or a manufacturing facility in the same location. Now, tonight, if this zone change is approved, there's obviously a lot of additional work that's left to do for my clients. They have to finalize a site plan layout. They have to finalize architectural designs. They need a grading plan, utility and stormwater infrastructure plans. But what's nice about this property, you can see it's a fairly large parcel compared to many of the parcels on this corridor, is there's enough land to provide for a reasonable development pad and still properly buffer and screen those adjacent residential neighbors that we have in this mixed use neighborhood. And that's regardless of what the final details of any development plan entails. We've obviously done some preliminary work in these areas to get to this point, but until this property is rezoned and the uses that we desire are actually permitted, the additional expense of time and resources to develop those plans is really unwarranted and unwise. So with the approval of this zone map change application tonight, we can move to the next step in the process. We can return to you and likely the Wetland Commission as well for additional project-specific approvals that also address any concerns of residential neighbors. With that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation this evening. We appreciate your attention. I'm happy to respond to any questions from the commission. Sarah and Patrick are also available if you have any specific questions, although again, I would urge you not to get into the specific design issues of a proposed project, but rather focus on the zone change that's been presented. I would reserve the right to rebut and or respond to any public comments. And again, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. I do just want to reiterate what Mr. Sweeney said, that, you know, the question to the commission tonight, you know, is not about a specific use. It's about whether the uses permitted in the Gales Ferry Design District as a whole are appropriate for this parcel. And so I do think that, you know, we do need to be careful there. And so I thank Mr. Sweeney for laying that out. Questions from commissioners for Mr. Sweeney on the application? Hearing no questions from commissioners, I will open it up to the public for questions and comments. And so what I'll ask you to do, if you want to speak, is to give your name and your address, make your comments or questions. And what we'll do is, after everyone has had a chance to speak, we'll allow Mr. Sweeney to speak again to respond to any of the questions or comments that came from that. So the public who wishes to speak on this application, please unmute your line and speak.
Hi, James Arek from Christie Hills. Hello, folks. So first of all, I'd like to compliment the entrepreneurs. I did some research and they're well accomplished, and it looks like they have a lot of different enterprises going on. So that's why the conclusion of our letter said that we wish them much success, just not here. As far as Attorney Sweeney's comment about let's focus on the zone change itself, with all due respect to Attorney Sweeney, I would like to say, first of all, Exhibit 2 in the application says the intended use is for a pub and dog park. So the commission does have the right to consider that, as do citizens. And also, I would ask the Honorable Commission to please recall that Attorney Sweeney did specifically state, he did state specifically not too long ago, a few minutes ago, alcoholic uses are not permitted in a CIP zone. That's primarily why we intend to change the districting. That's exactly what Attorney Sweeney said, along with the rest of his sentence. And I'm sure he'll rebut to that. But that's exactly what he said. I wrote it down and it's recorded. So with that, I would ask that at the end of our question and answer for the commission to please consider that. I'm going to move on to other points that Attorney Sweeney made. We've made our points quite clear about the alcohol. I did ask many people in town, would they like something like that next to their home? And they said no. A lot of people said in town, yeah, but nobody I asked said, yeah, put it right next to my house. Another thing I'd like to say is that Attorney Sweeney, again, with all due respect, no disrespect meant whatsoever. I'm sure he's quite competent and intelligent. He said, you can't please everybody. Well, how about pleasing and helping the elderly, the handicapped? And how about the children, not only at the condo complex, but across the street and in the homes next door that take the school bus every day? That's, you know, this type of thing is not conducive. The point that Attorney Sweeney made about not a significant buffer of trees and vegetation, with all due respect, It is actually, unfortunately, not significant if you look at the direct border between Chrissy Hill Condos Complex and 1528 Route 12. It is thankfully a border of trees, but it is very thin. And if you go right up to it, it doesn't take much to walk in the middle and then to walk on the other side. And then you can see that huge dirt area that he did point to. So it is a thin layer. Lighting will show through. I'd like to comment on that if I would in a second. We did speak indirectly with the Scullys. Again, very well accomplished, knowledgeable, classy people and entrepreneurs. No arguments there, nothing bad to say. The thing is, Attorney Sweeney said this could encourage outdoor recreational activities. Well, that's terrific. I love going to all sorts of games and activities, but I really wouldn't like any loud outdoor recreational activities next to where I'm trying to sleep at night. And I'm sure you wouldn't, Mr. Woody. And I understand, let's focus on the zoning change itself, and I'm going to get there, but I'm just responding directly to what Attorney Sweeney said. And new commercial development, all of us at Christie Hill Condos feel isn't really good for, I mean, the type of development isn't good for the owls, the deer, the coyotes. That's how we feel. I do have several other points that the folks at Christie Hill Condos wrote up with me, if I may. The zone, GFDD zone, one purpose is to attract and encourage family activities. So that's true with the pub, it could do that. But if it's changed from CIP to GFDD, and it's an alcoholic beverage tap house, as stated in the application, as the intended use and as stated by Attorney Sweeney, it's incompatible to families with children in our complex and the common grass areas and where children play with their friends. It's also incompatible with the retired folks that live here. And it's not just Christie Hills. I did speak to a neighbor. He's one of two small homes that live directly in front of 1528 Route 12. And he wasn't crazy about the impact on the wildlife. And he mentioned to me that next door to him and the other small home is the landlord's mother, elderly. I'm sure she really wouldn't favor the intended use. Then the other thing is there are in total 19 uses for GFDD that are not listed for CIP uses. And those are of concern. And so with all humility, I would like to point that out to the commission. The first four, if it was changed from CIP to GFDD zoning, are inconsistent with family and residential dwellings. Alcohol, liquor, I've said enough about that, okay. Clubs in general, outdoor recreation facilities, temporary forms of outdoor entertainment. Well, those outdoor entertainment, that could be good, or it may not be appropriate for family and children and the elderly. Or for hard workers like me that have crazy hours and I just want to relax and then go to bed. Changing from CIP over to GFDD zoning has an impact on property value because I wish the entrepreneurs much success, however this turns out. Let's suppose someday in the future, I don't have the money to move anywhere else. Let's suppose someday in the future, Mr. and Mrs. Scully decide to sell their business or move on or something changes. A GFDD zone would impact the property value if a motel was put up there. It's not allowed for a CIP district. Also, vehicle service and rentals, that would take down our property value. Also, if we had outdoor storage and the sales of storage right next door to us would also decrease the property value significantly of the homes in front of that. And also there are several homes behind it and adjacent to it on Long Cove Road. If it were changed to a GFDD from CIP as it is now, there could be parking structures, public and private utilities. To me, and please feel free to correct me, but public and private utilities, to me, that sounds like power utilities or cell towers. Those would pose health risks and severely decrease our property value as well. So again, Commission, I am focusing on the zoning change itself, citing all sorts of examples and reasons why we're opposed to it, as well as our neighbors. Interestingly enough, I did check the difference in the latest Ledyard published zoning, and it says, as of 2021, if it went from CIP to GFDD, there could actually be power, equipment, and utility trailer sales. Power, equipment, and utility trailer sales, not exactly something that helps property value. Other things that are inconsistent with residential districts that could happen if it changed from CIP over to GFDD. Indoor research and testing of different sorts. Not exactly the most pleasant, not the worst, but I really wouldn't like to have a McDonald's or anything else right next door to me. I mean, it might help for snacks, but that wouldn't help my property value. So restaurants or fast food restaurants, retail sales, accessory use of rooming and boarding, a shopping center, which although may be convenient, would not help with property value, an indoor theater, a conference center that would be kind of noisy, as would something set up for office and retail. For many of those things that I had mentioned, Mr. Woody, there'll be loud patrons, music and noise during all sorts of hours and during cleanup time. There would also be sky glow light, which is not really good for the woodlands and wildlife, and certainly not conducive to trying to rest at nighttime. And another thing is, at least as far as I understand, my part of Route 12 at Christie Hills and the residential areas right there are one lane. So all these things, when changing from CIP over to GFDD, would actually compound the issue of having some traffic problems as it is in a single lane area. We're also concerned, finally, about our sewage septic tank. We have a filtration system, and it goes into our leaching field, which is right next to 1528 Route 12. So that water from our sewage is filtered, and it's put back as clean, fresh water into our ground. And we are concerned that at some point in the future, not even the pub and dog park itself, but if that zone were to be used for something else, that could have implications for the fresh water. If nothing else, we do hope that anybody and everybody that plans to develop in this area would please take into consideration the trees and the wildlife. So that's what I have to say on behalf of all 30 units at Christie Hill Condos. That's actually more than 60 residents. And I thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you for your comments. Just for the record, you did list some uses there that are actually allowed in both the GFDD and the CIP. So some of those were a little mixed up, but I think we understand your point of your concern about different uses in different zones. The only other caution I would make to you is the current zoning of CIP, commercial industrial, would allow the construction of a fairly large building that would have, at least as large an impact on any of the wildlife that's currently there, as changing it to GFDD. So just so you know that, don't be fooled into thinking because it's CIP, there isn't anything that's allowed there. But I think, your points are well taken. And we have a couple of questions that we'll ask Mr. Sweeney to rebut after everyone else has spoken. So I thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Does anyone else from the public wish to speak?
Eric Treaster.
Mr. Treaster.
Good evening. My name is Eric Treaster, 10 Huntington Way. As stated by Attorney Sweeney, this application is a proposed zoning map amendment to change the property at 1528 Route 12 from its existing CIP zoning to the Gales Ferry Design District zoning. The property has frontage on Route 12 that is opposite the Northeast Medical Group building, which is a pediatric practice. More importantly, the adjacent property to the north contains the Christie Hill condominium complex. Even though Exhibit 2 shows that property is intended to be used as a tap room, any of the uses allowed in the Gales Ferry Design District will become permitted uses of the property if the application is approved. Examples of uses that are not permitted in the existing CIP district, but are permitted within the Gales Ferry Design District include adult daycare facilities, assisted living for seniors, bed and breakfast, business centers, country inns, apartment buildings, hotels, motels, new and used car dealerships, nursing homes, restaurants, including fast food restaurants, shopping centers, pubs, taverns, and the intended tap room. Except for compliance with the bulk requirements, pubs, taverns, and tap rooms are not subject to conditions of approval, are not subject to supplemental zoning regulations, and are not required to comply with the design guidelines. Tap rooms are essentially unregulated under the existing zoning regulations. The commission should consider if any of the allowed new uses, including the intended tap room, if at this location, would have a detrimental effect on the pediatric medical practice to the west or on the property values or the quality of life of the residents in the Christie Hill condominiums to the north. Based on the reputation of the applicant, I believe the tap room would be well-designed, properly developed, and operated so that the Christie Hill condominium and the pediatric medical practice would not be at risk. However, the commission is not supposed to consider the reputation of an applicant when it evaluates proposed changes to the zoning map. In addition to considering the impact on nearby properties, the commission should consider whether any of the allowed new uses, if developed on this property, would be in conflict with the purpose of the Gales Ferry Design District or inconsistent with the goals in the Plan of Conservation and Development. According to the regulations, one of the purposes of the Gales Ferry Design District is to encourage low-intensity commercial development, cohesive architectural design, few curb cuts, and the connectivity of properties. A tap room would not be subject to cohesive architectural design requirements, would not be connected to adjacent properties, and would require a 30-foot curb cut. In addition, one of the goals in the Plan of Conservation and Development for the Gales Ferry Design District is to encourage traditional village development, which may not be appropriate for this property. The commission should also consider whether the existing CIP zoning for the property should be retained to encourage the commercial manufacture of goods and products, warehousing, and high-tech industrial uses, which is recommended in the Plan of Conservation and Development. In my opinion, the proposed zone change is not as consistent with the Plan of Conservation and Development as is the existing CIP zoning for the property. Zoning map changes should be infrequent, fair, and made only for compelling reasons. I am not in favor of reducing the amount of land available in Ledyard for commercial manufacturing. I am also not in favor of a tap room near a pediatric medical facility or adjacent to high-density residential developments. But I recognize the proposed zone change would likely lead to the immediate productive use of the property, which would be good for Ledyard. It will be an important and difficult decision. Based on Exhibit 2, It also appears a dog park is an intended use of the property. The zoning regulations allow multiple principal uses on properties in the Gales Ferry Design District. However, a dog park is not defined in the zoning regulations or in the dictionary and is not listed in the schedule of permitted uses. However, a dog park is defined on Wikipedia as a park for dogs to exercise and play off leash in a controlled environment under the supervision of their owners. Under the existing regulations, a dog park would be allowed by right if it were an accessory to a permitted use. However, in my opinion, a dog park cannot be an accessory use because dog parks are not customarily incidental to pubs, taverns, tap rooms, or to any other use in the use table. A dog park would also be allowed if it were within the scope of a permitted use. For example, a dog park would be allowed if it were a personal service establishment, which is allowed in the Gales Ferry Design District and in CIP districts. The supplemental regulations classify personal service establishments into two tiers. Examples of Tier 1 personal service establishments, which are allowed by right, include dressmaker, tailor, dry cleaning, mail carrier, pet grooming, shoe repair, and small appliance repair, including watches, locks, and similar small items. Based on the examples in the regulations and the definition on Wikipedia, a dog park is not a Tier 1 personal service establishment. Examples of Tier 2 personal service establishments, which are allowed by special permit, include spas, beauty salons, tanning salons, nail salons, barbershops, tattoo and body piercing studios, and laundromats. Based on the examples and the regulations and the definition on Wikipedia, a dog park is not a Tier 2 personal service establishment. Personal service establishments are defined in the regulations as establishments primarily engaged in providing services involving the care of a person or his or her personal goods or apparel. Dog parks are primarily engaged in providing for the care of dogs, not persons. And of course, dog parks have nothing to do with the care of a person's goods or his apparel. As such, under the existing regulations, it is clear that dog parks are not allowed in Ledyard, and the commission should disregard the intended dog park use of the property. I expect that dog parks, for the same reason as kennels, will not be an allowed use in design districts. I will provide an electronic copy of my presentation for the record. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Treaster. Does anyone else from the public wish to speak? Hearing none. Mr. Sweeney. Can you hear me, Mr. Sweeney?
I can.
Yeah. So the only, well, I'll let you rebut anything that you felt. I have a couple of things, but you'll probably cover it, and so probably easier to do it that way.
Thank you, Chairman Woody. In terms of Mr. Allrock's comments, I just want to point out that Mr. Allrock has presented no evidence into the record that I'm aware of that he's speaking for all the residents of the Christie Hill condominium complex. There were letters from several apparent residents of the complex that I understand were submitted today and which we were not provided copies of. But I don't think that there is any evidence whatsoever that he speaks for all residents of that community. I think I want to point out that there is this concern that what we're proposing may not be a family-friendly use, and that nothing could be further from the truth. The tavern that we're proposing would only be open Thursday through Sunday. We expect it to be open from a little bit before noon to only 9 or 10 p.m. On the weekends. And this is not a late night drinking establishment. It's not a dive bar or anything, along those lines. We'll operate much like many of the breweries operate throughout the state that have similar types of arrangements. I do want to agree with Mr. Treatster that when you consider the zone change tonight, you don't simply consider solely the issue of our proposed use. Certainly, there's a reason why we're the applicant, and we've been very clear and transparent on that. But you have to consider all the uses in the zone and not what we're proposing. Your staff, Ms. Hodge, did a really nice job in her staff report breaking down the differences between the two zones, what's allowed in both zones and what's allowed in one zone but not the other. And I urge you to take a look at that. I would concur with Mr. Woody's statement that many of the uses that Mr. Allrock indicated were objectionable are already allowed in the CIP district, or allowed in both districts. So I appreciate you pointing that out. Absolutely. We've been clear that the reasoning behind this application was because the tavern will have the sale of alcoholic beverages. We need the GFDD district to do that. We will be applying for the dog park under parks and playgrounds. Parks and playgrounds are a permitted use in the GFDD district. So I know Mr. Treatser has a different opinion about that, but I'm confident that that is absolutely within the realm of what parks and playgrounds, which is a permitted use in the GFDD, encompass. I want to make a point as well. There was some question that the buffering to the property to the north of the condominium property is not sufficient. I think it is fairly significant, but my clients in meeting with the neighbors have already indicated that if there needs to be additional landscaping or fencing or other types of screening put in along the northern property line, that's something that could come at the site plan level to do that. And we're committed to doing that. We've already promised the people we met with that we're going to properly buffer and screen. I think there's plenty of natural vegetation, but we'll certainly take a look at that, again, regardless of what the ultimate end use is. I think the big point I want to point out tonight, and I think this is really critical because I think it really goes to the heart of the matter, is we're not proposing to change the zone of 1528 Route 12 to a new zoning district. We're not pulling some zoning district. We're not creating a new zoning district. We're not pulling a zoning district that doesn't already exist in the area. We're asking for the same zoning that the Christie Hill condominium complex sits in today. Think about that for a second. So Mr. Allrock went through a list of all the possible uses that he finds objectionable, but his condo complex sits in the GFDD district. It's subject to the same rules that he's objecting to and the uses. I think that is an important distinction, and I think it's something that the commission has to consider. All we're asking for is to be governed by the same rules that his property is governed by. We're not trying to bring in some new rules. We're just shifting the property line, the zone boundary, one property south. Again, take a look at those uses in Juliet Hodges' report. I think they're really illustrative. And I know you can go through that list, and you do have to. I think it is wise to look through all those uses. But then take a second at the bottom of her table, look at the uses that are allowed as of right, permitted uses in the CIP district. And again, I go through it again: auto service and auto rentals, boat construction and repair, communication systems, hospitals and clinics, industrial parks, light industrial, lumber yards, building sales yard, manufacturing, maintenance, laundromat, small wind energy systems as accessory uses, solar energy systems as a principal use, storage facilities, warehouses, sawmills, and self-storage with truck rental as an accessory use. These are the uses that are allowed in the CIP zone that won't be allowed anymore if it gets changed to the GFDD. I think this type of a project, if it's properly designed, could be a real asset to the GFDD. It could be something that would fit very well into the neighborhood. You have the opportunity on a site like this, and Mr. Treatser's right, you can't look at the integrity of my clients, but my client's integrity, I think, is top notch. But this site has the room to do a project and not have those negative externalities, those negative impacts. You do something really nice there that fits into the neighborhood. And certainly this property was zoned GFDD 5 years ago. So certainly at one time, the commission thought it was an appropriate designation. It was changed to CIP for a quote unquote industrial project that never happened. And it sat fallow for 5 years. We have a project now. Somebody wants to develop it. Somebody wants to invest in the town of Ledyard. We're just asking to turn the zone back to what it was to begin with. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to rebut tonight. I'd ask for your action on the item tonight, if possible. Thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any final questions for Mr. Sweeney?
Okay.
Yeah, I might check in.
Okay.
Somebody want to mute?
Okay, I got muted. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing for application number PZ 21-08, map 1528, zone map change to extend Gales Ferry Design District Zone 200 feet to include the subject property at 7:55 p.m. Next up on our agenda is discussion and decision of application PZ 21-08, map 1528, Route 12, zone map change to extend the Gales Ferry Design District Zone 200 feet to include the subject property.
I have a motion.
Wait a minute. You didn't make a motion?
I have a motion.
Yeah, I was just reading the item on the agenda. Next up, I was going to ask for a motion.
I have a
Close.
motion.
Mr. Cherry,
I make a motion to approve the map amendment application PZ 21-08 submitted by Sarah and Patrick Scully to extend the Gales Ferry Design District Zone 200 feet to include the subject property located at 528 Route 12 Gales Ferry. And that we find it consistent with the plan of conservation and development and the comprehensive plan with an effective date of 1 November.
do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Boudreau with the second. Thank you. Ms. Hodges, did you have a comment?
I'm confused. So did you make a motion to close the public hearing and get a vote? I didn't hear that.
He closed the public hearing.
I closed the public hearing, yes.
Do we need a motion to do that and a vote? typically?
We
Additionally, we
don't
don't.
believe so. We've never done that.
Okay.
So the motion on the table is the motion to approve the map amendment application. I think the important things to consider here, are first the fact that this parcel has been in the Gales Ferry Design District for a long time before it was changed a couple of years ago. And so there is history that the belief is that the uses here are compatible with this parcel. At least in my mind, the uses that are allowed exclusively in the CIP tend to be those that most commonly cause nuisances for adjacent properties, and that generally the uses in the Gales Ferry Design District are lower intensity and more easy to control. Either way, this property can be developed with a variety of shared commercial uses. I think the report from Ms. Hodges highlighted the number of overlapping uses between the two zones. There's an awful lot of things that can happen in both. And there's a few differences that stand out that certainly make the difference for this application. Comments from commissioners where, do they have thoughts on this?
If I could.
Mr. Cherry?
Could I ask Deb to pull up Exhibit 10 once again, please? That's the zoning map. And, a little bit of history. The parcel was changed from Gales Ferry Design District to CIP because the owner, the realtor, thought he couldn't sell it if he had to put a sidewalk in. And he saw that there were many uses in both zones, but the sidewalk was killing him. So he came in and wanted a zone change. The Gales Ferry Design District came about when we got rid of the commercial zone, C1, C2, and so forth. So when you look at this map, notice 1528 is surrounded by residential areas. If that was pink, like the area across Route 12 and the area south of it, it would be incongruent. It wouldn't fit in. Having this be more of a design district mixed use than an industrial section makes sense. And that's why we zoned it that way in the first place. Making that blue again instead of pink, just looking at the colors makes a lot of sense without going through a long list of uses. But even light manufacturing, storage, sawmills, those are not things compatible with the R40 and the condominium zones that are there. Yet light commercial uses, pub, park, are. So I agree with the applicant. And as far as park being allowed or not allowed, the definition read by Mr. Treaster said, Wikipedia says dog park is a park, and then continued on. And I think that was what the commission determined on an informal basis a while back. If, could this be done? It's park. So at that, I'll step off my soapbox. Thank you.
Other commissioners? Hearing no other comments from the commissioners. Ms. Hodges, any comments from staff?
Nothing new to add. I agree with everything that's said. I really feel like the uses that are already permitted in that zone by right are far more have the potential of being far more objectionable, at least with the Gales Ferry Design District. Some of those, what I sometimes call nuisance uses are at least allowed by special permit versus permitted outright. So if, that part in my report where you're looking at, they're allowed in both zones, but some in the CIP zone, they're allowed by right, but in the Gales Ferry District, they're allowed by special permit. So I think they get a little more protection. I think if it was in the Gales Ferry Design District before, and you went through this whole process before and determined that that parcel was appropriate to be zoned that way, I think it's a very reasonable request to zone it back.
Thank you, Ms. Hodges. With that, I will call a vote on the motion to approve the map amendment application, PZ 21-08. Mr. Boudreau.
I vote yes.
Mr. Cherry.
Yes.
Mr. Capon.
Yes.
Ms. Scanlon.
Yes.
And the chair votes aye, so the motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your support. Look forward to working with you in the months ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Sweeney, we look forward to seeing you come back for a site permit.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Yep, thank you. Next item on our agenda is a public hearing for PZ 21-09 SUP 388R Colonel Ledyard Highway. This is a application for a special permit for a two-family duplex. And bear with me for a moment while I get to the exhibit list. I can only open tabs so fast. Okay. The exhibit list for application PZ 21-09. Application number 1 is the application received on August 12th, 2021. Exhibit number 2 is a one-page plan drawing. Exhibit number 3 is the second page of that plan with detailed drawings. Exhibit number 4 is the survey of the property as it exists. Exhibit 5 through 8 are 4 pages of drawings of the application. Exhibit number 9 is the public hearing notice to applicant. This is dated August 23rd, 2021. To Michael Scanlon at Ledyard Properties. Dear applicant, the Planning and Zoning Commission has scheduled a remote public hearing for this application at 7 p.m. on Thursday, September 9th, 2021 via Zoom. Please be aware that you or your representative must be in attendance for this public hearing to answer any questions the commission may have. Exhibit number 10 is the legal notice. States application PZ 21-09 SUP 388R Colonel Ledyard Highway, Ledyard, Connecticut. Property owner Ledyard Properties LLC, agent Michael Scanlon for a special permit for a 2-family duplex. Exhibit number 10 is the legal notice sent to all property abutters, as well as the certificates of mailing. Exhibit number 12 is the list, is the abutters map. Exhibit number 13 is the staff review from Juliet Hodge, Director of Planning. This is dated September 9th, 2021. I will not read that. I'll assume everyone has read it. Exhibit number 14 is a comment from Jennifer Whitney to the Ledyard Planning and Zoning Commission, dated September 9th, 2021. Existing conditions for the record, lot 380R was created in a deed dated 8/3/1962, and it included right-of-way access to the Schoolhouse Lane easement. I am the current owner and my parents were the previous owners. We have asserted our right-of-way access many times over the years since it was established, and we have given no indication of abandoning it. I would like the continuation of this easement to be noted in the written record. Special permit standards. 2, the proposed development size, location, and character are in harmony with the surrounding area. While it is true that the proposed structure and parking would not be visible from the street, it will be fully visible from my house and rear yard and from other neighboring properties. Because it is a duplex with no garages, the parking area is larger than would be used for most single-family homes and would accommodate double the number of vehicles of a single-family home. The parking area is elevated above the natural landscape and surrounded by retaining stones. The proposed structure and parking area are out of character with the residences and wooded area surrounding my property. Therefore, I respectfully request that a condition of approval be added that requires the following. A landscape tall, dense evergreen screen shall be added and maintained along the southwest boundary of the property abutting 384 Colonel Ledyard Highway from the edge of the driveway to the property corner abutting 382 Colonel Ledyard Highway. The design of the screen shall be subject to the commission's approval before it is installed. That's all the exhibits I've got. We will open the public hearing at 8:07 p.m. For a presentation from the applicant. Who's speaking for the applicant tonight?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman. This is Michael Scanlon. I'm the applicant on behalf of the property owner, Ledyard Properties. The principal is Kevin Scanlon, who's also sitting here to my left, who's available for any questions you might have tonight from him. We've submitted this plan based on the design prepared by Lorero Engineering to try to make use of this residential piece of property that is certainly suitable for residential development. And in this particular zone, the use as a duplex is permitted as a special use. And that's the basis of our application. It's pretty straightforward residential development. There were some, Ms. Whitney was some concerns about a right-of-way across her property, which actually is no longer even adjacent to the property in question. So any of her concerns with regard to rights and things of record, that may be very important to her, but it actually, we don't even abut those uses, and as a part of the prior conveyance of property to that abutting property owner, any of the rights associated with 388R were extinguished. So you know, that item is basically moot with respect to this application. We will be taking direct access off of Colonel Ledyard Highway over an intervening piece of property that if you're familiar with this area, you know the church that's right there on Colonel Ledyard Highway, almost right up on the highway line. Well, this
Deb,
piece of real estate-
sorry to interrupt. Deb, could you pull up exhibit number 4, please? Just so that everyone has a view of that. Sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to get a diagram of side up.
That's my property.
Okay, can you please scroll down a little bit on that? Okay, thank you. So if you look at this plan, in the center of the screen right now, you'll see the piece of property that we're referring to, and that is what is now the reconfigured shape of 388R Colonel Ledyard Highway. You'll see that there is a second parcel of land located just north of the parcel that we're proposing on that says that it's to be conveyed. I'm sorry, I can't read, it's a little blurry there, but it's to be conveyed to the adjacent property owner. And just along the north property line, you'll see the symbol like a letter Z. Okay, that was the original property line. And if you look north of that, you can kind of see a depiction of a somewhat of a traveled way. It's basically driveways, but this is the old school house lane that the abutter was referring to. And as you can see, it no longer really has any bearing on the property that we're talking about now, and it will not be providing access. Our access, in fact, comes over the piece of property where it's 3, I'm sorry,
It's like 386.
386, I believe, right. There is a deeded 25-foot wide access and utility easement across that property for the specific purpose of providing those access and utilities to this lot. And we've designed our driveway and our utilities will be within that right of way. Just a note, if this were a frontage property, that strip would only be required to be 20 feet wide. So, but we actually have a 25-foot wide access easement to our property. Okay, it's basically a pretty vanilla application. It's a very standard duplex property, side by side, two floors. Of course, the parking in the front to accommodate that use. Everything has been designed to comply with the standards, with the bulk regulations for the zone. Ms. Hodge did a very detailed review, and I would suggest that after, Mr. Chairman, will you be reading her review into the record?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Will you be reading Ms. Hodge's staff review into the record? Because it addresses pretty much every issue that's of any import for this application. And we have no issues with it. We concur with everything she said there. And I think that ultimately it demonstrates that our project it certainly is consistent with the zone and it satisfies the requirements for special permits. And without making too much of a complicated thing out of this, the only real reason we're here is because it's a duplex as opposed to a single family residence. So we're looking for the appropriateness of putting a duplex on this property. Have you guys any questions? The property owner, Kevin Scanlon, is here if there are any questions that you would like him to address. But I suggest everything is pretty well covered in Ms. Hodge's staff review.
Yeah, I agree. Mrs. Hodge's report is on the record. I did not read the entire document, but it is attached to the record. I had a couple of questions about the drainage just to make sure I understood it. So there's a single septic and single well for the duplex. Is that correct?
Well, it's a single septic sized for the duplex. Yes.
Correct. Yep. And so the septic, there's no drainage from the parking area going into the septic, is there?
I'm sorry. Would it be helpful if we looked at that exhibit? The site
Yeah,
plan?
that's exhibit 2.
Thank you.
If you can zoom in a little bit, Deb, that'd be great.
If you look at the grading, what you'll basically see is that from the, let's call it the center of the driveway as it approaches the center of the house. If you look at the contours and the grading, basically what we're doing is we're proposing sheet flow over the actual paved portion of the parking lot into basically not going to say modified riprap, but some sort of slope protection. If you look at the grades for this lot, you'll see it falls off quite rapidly from west to east. Okay, so drainage with respect to this project is slowing it down from what it already is, and again you'll see that the grading in the parking area basically provides for sheet drainage to the north and to the south.
Great. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure because I thought it was a contour line that was going over the septic tank, and I just wanted to make sure that that's what that was and not a drain line of some kind.
No. The only drain is the curtain drain for the house itself, and you'll see that it actually right now it is designed to discharge to the let's say to the north along the back of the residence. It'll daylight out there somewhere.
Okay. And so then my second comment is to reiterate something that Ms. Hodges had in her report, which is the maximum height is 35 feet, not 50 feet, as stated. And that's 30 feet, by our definition, that's, average of the grade and midpoint to the ridge. So I think you're fine with the sort of conceptual drawings that you added, but just wanted to reiterate that.
Yeah, actually, that's a typographical error. I believe it says 35.3. Okay. That will be corrected on plan when we submit for zoning permit.
Great. Questions from commissioners for the applicant? Hearing none. Ms. Scanlon?
Oh, sorry. I was just zooming into the drawing to try to read. It says it's to the ridge there. So actually we count to the midpoint. So that would still be acceptable. Is that right, Nate?
So from the conceptual drawing, it looked like they would be fine. But I just wanted to make sure that point was clear. And I mean, I think those architectural drawings are just conceptual, right? Those aren't, knock down exactly what they might be. So.
Okay, thank you.
Couple of corrections to the site plan, if I could.
Please, Mr. Chair.
We talked about the minimum frontage. Interior lots, you show 0, but you have frontage. So I would correct that in your zoning data table. Building height, we already talked about. You're going to fix that. Water supply, you had indicated municipal, but in fact, it's a well. So if we that's just a typo on the plan that, if you're going to clean it up, let's fix those too. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Michael Scanlon here. Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes, we are. I believe those typos you're referring to are also reiterated in Juliet's memo. And I'm sorry, your first comment, I forgot what it was, but I wanted frontage. You were speaking of frontage. In fact, this is in essence what would normally be referred to as a landlocked parcel. We do not have any physical frontage in fee title. Okay, it's an easement. It's a right of way. We have a right to cross that property from Colonel Ledyard Highway to the site. Okay, we do not own that property, so we have no frontage. Frontage is 0.
I would agree with that statement.
Mr. Chair, you're muted.
Yeah, but my lips are moving.
Mhm.
I wonder then, with what's there being correct, should it just be noted with an asterisk, legally non-conforming lot, landlocked, no frontage required? Something like that?
We would have no issue adding a note to the plan as a condition of approval.
Or in the special permit that gets attached to the land record somewhere that, in years in the future, somebody sees, well, you needed 20, but you got 0. How come that got approved? That there's some note.
Well, there is actually a survey map on file, okay, that
Yeah.
indicates that there is no frontage and that the access to the property is provided by a 25-foot right of way.
Correct. I saw that. That's the August 2018 survey.
That's correct.
Yeah. Just, looking at a table going, how come? I'll leave that to you.
Like I said,
then.
we have no objection. I would suggest that if that is an issue, that possibly Ms. Hodge can help you with some language that will satisfy your concern.
I think when the plan is cleaned up and submitted, that Ms. Hodge will take care of our.
There's a standard,
Yeah,
asterisk. We'll just put pre-existing
yeah,
landlocked
done.
interior
Yeah.
lot.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That's all I had.
Great. Other comments or questions from commissioners for the applicant?
The reserve area,
Anyone?
sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
Looking at the reserve area for the septic, just noticing that it does cross within the 100-yard line to the wetlands. I don't know if, that's not our review, but it's a concern that it's a tight lot. I'm not sure if that's something that has been considered.
Mike Scanlon,
Yes,
the reserve area, as such, as a reserve area, is not proposed to be constructed. Okay?
correct.
It's shown to satisfy the public health code. Okay, and as far as crowding the lot, well, this is a site plan showing that it can satisfy the requirements of the public health code with respect to providing on-site sewage disposal for this use. And it's been my experience in my 40 years, I don't know that I've ever seen anybody actually use the reserve area. They repair the system that fails. But that being aside, I don't know that is really an issue that ought to be of great concern. But if there's something that you feel needs to be addressed, we'd be happy to look at it and see if we could satisfy your concern.
No, I think that it looks like you have other area outside the 100-foot line that if you did have to design a new system, it seems like you'd have area to do it. I just noticed that the line crossed.
Exactly.
So that you can disregard my comment.
Well,
I
I thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Hodges?
Also, if somewhere in the future their septic system failed, let's say, and they had to go in and apply for a repair of a system and it involved a disturbance within that 100-foot buffer, then we would have a chance to determine whether or not the Wetlands Commission needed to review it. So since this is really it's sort of strange when a house is by special permit, you're really approving that this use is appropriate there on that parcel, but it does go through additional reviews by staff. So we could send it there then.
Yeah. Other questions or comments from commissioners for the applicant? Hearing none, I'll open it to the public. If there are any members of the public who wish to speak on this application, please go ahead and unmute your line. State your name and address, and please ask away.
I would like to speak.
Please.
My name is Sarah Leonard, and I am speaking on behalf of my sister, Jennifer Whitney. She lives in 382 Colonel Ledyard Highway and is the owner, and she also owns the 380R lot as well. She did submit comments that you read. And just to respond to the statement about the easement, we only included it because there was information in the existing conditions related to the easements, and we wanted it on the record. We understand that it is not relevant to the special permit being discussed. So I just wanted to state that we just wanted it to be on the record for protection of it in the future. So getting to the matter at hand, our understanding is that all of the special permit conditions need to be met in order for this to be approved, and the staff is recommending that it be approved. We have a concern with the second condition. I'll just read it out. I know you read it already. The proposed development size, location, and character is in harmony with the surrounding area. Staff's response was that the proposed structure is located well off the road, which is correct, not visible from the street on an existing interior lot. As such, the larger building and associated parking will not be as visible to surrounding residences. So as stated in the comments, and a correction to the staff statement, it actually will be the proposed structure and parking area will be fully visible to my sister's property from her home and from her rear yard, and it will be visible from the other neighboring properties on the other side. Now, besides it being visible, we also do not agree that the proposed structure and parking lot are in character with the surrounding area. So if you want to consider that surrounding area, there are single family homes. They're small single family homes. They are on large lots. They have grass and landscaping wooded areas in their yards. They back up onto a wooded area, the woods behind the homes. There is also the small church. Now, you know, the structure itself, the duplex, you know, it's large. It's not really in character with the area, but that's not what the issue is. The issue is with the parking area. And I'm glad you have Exhibit 2 up, because if you look at that, the parking area is 100 feet by 32 feet. It's 3,200 square feet. The footprint of the structure is 26 feet by 50 feet. It's only 1,300 square foot. So there's a parking area in front of this duplex that is 2.5 times the footprint of the structure, the home. That is excessive. It's all pavement. There it goes, you can see on the map, the survey, it extends from well beyond the duplex on each side, beyond the decks, and covers the complete front area in pavement. There's no grass, no room for landscaping, nothing that you would normally see in front of a residence in the town of Ledyard. We don't understand why the parking area is so large. It's a 6-bedroom duplex. We would expect at least a minimum of 4 vehicles. It seems like this parking area can hold well more than that. There are no garages, so the vehicles will always be out in view. So I would state that there are no, Mr. Scanlon, I would disagree, said this is a vanilla application. There are no single family homes or duplexes that I know of in the surrounding area that have a 32 by 100 foot parking lot in the front of their residence. It's just totally out of character. I don't even see any defense of the parking lot being in character with the area. The fact that it's set off the road does not make it fit in the character of the area when it's in sight of the other residences, including my sister's home. So that is the issue. I believe that, you know, these homes, part of the appeal of living in these homes in along Colonel Ledyard Highway in that area are that they back up to the wooded area. And, you know, there's a lot of, it's all natural area. And this would really quite possibly harm the value of the home, the quality of living, and the ability to sell the homes. So I don't really see a solution to that. It would, we would appreciate an explanation on why the parking area is so large. Certainly reducing the parking area would be preferable, but it would have to be a significant reduction to make it more in line with what you might expect in the area. The only duplexes I could think of were off Lambtown Road, and they don't even have paved areas. I think they're gravel. So we'd appreciate an explanation of it, and we would also appreciate a solution so that this proposal would meet the conditions, you know, specifically that second condition. If it's not feasible to reduce the parking area, which I imagine it's not, the only reasonable solution that we could think of was to request that the commission put a condition on that the applicant must put up a screen. Ideally, the screen really should be the whole area of the frontage, because you're talking about a huge parking area in front of a residence. But the comments specified only the southwest corner. We would request that the commission consider requiring a tall evergreen screen dense to the ground. The commission would approve the design of the screen so that it would be reasonable. In other words, you don't put in, a small plant. We would expect the screen to be a starting point of, 4 to 6 feet tall or something reasonable. And that's what we would request in order to basically try to find a solution so that this parking area for this structure isn't in full sight of my sister's home. And I would appreciate, besides understanding the necessity of having such a large parking area, I would appreciate it if the commission considered discussion of this and adequately defended that second condition of why this, if there isn't a solution, why this would be considered part of the character of our surrounding area.
Thank you for your comments. And I'll ask Mr. Scanlon after anyone else speaks for a response to that. Does anyone else from the public wish to speak on this application? Last call. Anyone on the else wish to speak on it? Make sure you unmute your line. We'll let you speak. Hearing none, back to Mr. Scanlon. So I think it's a fair question. The parking area is pretty huge out front. And I think it's a fair question to ask if there's anything that can be done to minimize the impact of that parking area on abutting properties.
Michael Scanlon here. We can certainly look at the configuration of that parking area, although I will ask you to, as you look at this, put yourself in your vehicle, in your car, and you are coming home to park in front of your house. You're going to come down that driveway, and you're either going to need to turn left or right to find a parking space, which is fine. When it comes time to leave, okay, that's where we have a consideration for the size of the parking lot, because in order to leave this site, okay, you are going to need to maneuver your vehicle. You've got some navigation issues here to navigate your vehicle so that you can pull out of the driveway with the front of your car rather than backing all the way out of the driveway. And as you know, that requires a certain amount of maneuver room, okay, in any type of a parking area. Many of us have in our own homes a small one, little hammerhead that you use when you come out of your garage. You back into it, you turn your car around, and you drive out your driveway. Similar treatment here, as Ms. Leonard mentioned, that she anticipates there being more than likely up to 4 cars there. Okay, so now you have this area where you have 4 vehicles and you need to navigate primarily in order to leave the property versus entering the property. We could investigate looking at some turning radii just to make certain that we don't have too much room here. We may be able to retract it some amount, but there will be a need to have a pretty sizable turning apron in order to make use of the property. Another consideration that I'm sure would not be objectionable to the owner is I don't believe we would object to changing the surface treatment of that from bituminous concrete to some sort of a gravel or permeable surface of sorts.
Okay, so any response to the request for some sort of buffering between the abutting property?
Well, okay. We could investigate that. Although, I mean, if that's within the purview of the special permit to provide screening, then we would need to satisfy that as a condition of approval. But if that's extraneous to the requirements for the zone, it's a wooded area. And with respect to saying the building and the parking area, I'm sure most of you must be familiar with this site. Okay, the property at the road being the church, okay, that property is a building and a parking lot. So this is not the only, let's say, not large, but oversized, parking in this area. That the church parking lot is quite significant, right? And we only really would need to develop what's necessary to navigate the property, and we can certainly address that at the zoning permit time.
Thank you. Other questions or final comments from commissioners for the applicant?
If I could,
Mr. Chair.
there was an allusion to it being a wooded lot. On this plan, obviously, it doesn't show cut areas to accomplish the building, but I take it that the rest of the lot, once you get off of areas you need to disturb, is going to remain wooded?
Yes, Michael Scanlon here. Actually, we say wooded. I think a better way to describe this would be heavily vegetated. Okay, most of this is ground cover.
Okay.
Although it's 6, 8, 10 feet high. Okay, it's ground cover. It's not hardwood. There are some hardwoods in here, but this is not a hardwood forest. This is reclaimed land.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll just speak. My name is Kevin Scanlon, for the record, 55 Pequot Trail, Pawcatuck. Just to address Mrs. Leonard's concerns too, and just speak to the nature and the intent of the development plan. It's obviously going to be to minimize disturbance of the site. The site seems to have been previously cleared and logged. So it is just overgrowth and vegetation, but as much native vegetation that can remain there is obviously our intent to maintain as much of that as possible. And again, with the driveway aspect, I would just ask you to kind of look at that picture, look at the site plan we have in front of you, and then just consider dividing that in half and consider that as a separate 3-bedroom property and the parking required for that type of property. And then consider that this is actually just for 2 dwelling units with 2 families. But our goal would be to obviously minimize impervious surfaces and to potentially consider gravel anywhere we can potentially meet the runoff requirements and maintain drainage control and everything else. So.
Thank you. Any last questions from commissioners?
I actually would like to speak, but if it's possible.
Sure. So normally we try to avoid getting into a back and forth debate, but if you have an additional comment, I'll allow it.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment. Just primarily in reference
to— This is Mrs. Leonard speaking. Sorry, I just have to put that on the record. It's no problem.
I apologize.
No problem.
I just wanted to state that it is correct that there is a church parking lot there. However, that is a church. We're talking about a residence. So this is a special permit for a duplex. It's not a special permit for a church. So I don't believe that the parking area of the church is relevant to the discussion, because we're talking about a residence and a huge parking area. And I would also state that even if you consider dividing that parking area in half, it still seems huge for a single family home. And that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that, if there are no final questions from commissioners for the applicant, I will close the public hearing for PZ 21-09 SUP, special permit for a two-family duplex at 8:40 p.m. Next item on the agenda is discussion and decision for PZ 21-09 SUP 388R Colonel Ledyard Highway. I will entertain a motion. I'll make this motion then. I make a motion that the commission approve application PZ 21-09 SUP 388R Colonel Ledyard Highway. Applicant Michael Scanlon, owner, Ledyard Properties LLC, for a special use permit site plan review for the construction of a duplex residence. In doing so, the commission has considered the application, record documents, public hearing testimony, and a plan entitled Site Plan New Residence and Subsurface Sewage Disposal System, New Duplex Residence 388R, Colonel Ledyard Highway, Ledyard, Connecticut, prepared for Ledyard Properties LLC, prepared by Lauriero Engineering Associates Incorporated, 100 Fort Hill Road, Groton, Connecticut, 06384, dated 10/23/2020. And the building plans prepared for Kevin Scanlon, 388R, Colonel Ledyard Highway, Ledyard, Connecticut, prepared by John Patrick Walsh, Architectural Design LLC, 9 Canal Street, Suite Number 2, Westerly, Rhode Island, 02891, dated 10/24/2019. The commission finds the application meets all applicable sections of the Ledyard zoning regulations, including the standards set forth in zoning regulations section 7.4 special permit standards and conditions of approval in zoning regulations section 7.5. The following conditions of approval shall apply. Number one, the zoning compliance table shall be modified to correct the building height at 35 feet, the water source, and a note indicating the lot requires no frontage. The wording of that to be approved by the planner. That is the only condition I have. If I can have a second.
Mike Cherry, I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Cherry. Discussion from the commission.
If I could, Commissioner Cherry, when you look at the size of the house footprint isn't much bigger than a standard 4-bedroom home. I mean, my home is not large, but it's 44 feet by 26 feet. So we're a little bit bigger. And then I got a garage, which makes it a little larger on the side. So it really does come down to how much parking you need. And I understand the arguments made by the applicant for a need to pull in and park and then turn around and pull out. So you're not backing out onto Colonel Ledyard Highway. I agree wholeheartedly with that. It'd be nice if it was smaller, but I'm not going to re-engineer his plan. I think they've taken into account turning radius for vehicles. And if they just dot the i's, cross the t's, that would be fine with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cherry. Other comments from commissioners?
This is Commissioner Scanlon. In a response to the talk about parking area, I was just looking at the elevations from the edge of the building down to the level of the parking area, and it's a difference of about 10 feet in elevation. So I think even, potentially without full screening, the view from the bottom of that building to the top, from the parking area to the bottom of the building is is pretty significant. And maybe in reality, when it's built, may not be as offensive as it might seem in plan when everything looks flat. That's just a comment that I wanted to share.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's a good point on the elevations. It definitely does drop off there. So, yeah. Other comments from commissioners, Mr. Cherry?
My nickel back again. I look at recent subdivisions, and the tendency has been contrary to when my home was built, where they minimized the cut, and I've been having to take trees out as time goes on. If I look at the recent subdivisions, the tendency has been to cut all the trees down, and there's no real screening from home to home. The duplex is still a home, and I don't think we have to screen the building. And I think anything you can do to minimize the parking is reasonable. Thank you.
Other comments from commissioners? Hearing none, I mirror the comments that I've heard. The size of the building is not exceptionally large. So it's a big building, but it's not exceptionally large. And I'm, as the owner of a truck with an 8-foot bed and extended cab, I'm sympathetic to there needing to be areas for someone to be able to turn around, so that they don't have to back down that driveway and try to back out on a Colonel Ledyard highway, which is not a great road to try to back out onto. So, I certainly encourage the applicant to spend the time to do some turning radiuses at zoning permit time, and make sure that the parking area there, as defined, actually meets the needs while minimizing the area that it takes up. It wouldn't surprise me if there's some room on the sides where it might be able to be minimized to some extent, and I encourage them to do that. While I'm sympathetic to how much room it can take to try to turn something around, especially if you're having to dodge other parked cars. So I'm sympathetic to that, and I appreciate Mrs. Galen's comment. That's not something I had noticed. I was looking at the plan. It's fair that there may be a little bit more protection than it looks like on the flat plan. Any final comments, staff? Any comments from Ms. Hodges?
I would also add that for fire trucks, that's a long driveway. You don't want a fire truck backing out onto Colonel Ledyard or an ambulance either. So that's a pretty good area for emergency vehicles. And I would also say, if you don't customarily require screening on parking lots for residential uses, it would be a stretch to require it here by statute. So
yeah, thank you.
I'm sure they'll landscape anyway, but most people do.
Yeah, thank you. Any final comments from commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Mr. Boudreau.
Parking lot of that size and inclement weather would give you a really nice place to put snow.
That's it, right.
It's true.
Need it.
Yeah, very true. Any last comments? Hearing none, I will call the vote on the motion to approve the special permit for a 2-family duplex with one condition. Mr. Boudreau? Sorry, I couldn't hear you, Mr. Boudreau.
I didn't say anything.
So I'm calling the vote on the motion.
Oh, yes, in favor.
Thank you. Mr. Cherry?
Yes.
Mr. Capon?
Aye.
Ms. Scanlon?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So the motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Okay. Next item on our agenda is public hearing on application PZ21-10 Resub Fireside Farm 4-lot Resubdivision, 34 Village Drive, owner Anthony Silvestri, and 16 Reuven Drive, owners Mario Luis Mendez and Susan Ponta. Let me pull up the exhibit list. Apologize, I can only open and close tabs so quickly. Okay. All right, here we go. We'll open the public hearing for application PZ21-10 resub at 8:49 p.m. I'll begin by reading the exhibits. Exhibit number 1 is the application for re-subdivision received August 10th, 2021. Exhibit number 2 is the City of Groton Department of Utilities Water Division Site Plan Preview Sheet, which includes 16 comments from Groton Utilities on the proposed development. Exhibit number 3. Deb, could you go ahead and pull up exhibit number 3 while you get a chance? It's probably one we'll want to look at. Exhibit number 3 is the plan set, which is 8 sheets. Exhibit number 5 is exhibit number 4 is the storm drainage calculations from July 7th, 2021. Exhibit number 5 is the watershed map of the area. Exhibit number 6 is the transmittal letter from the town of Ledyard Planning Department to the town of Ledyard Fire Marshal. This is dated August 18th, 2021, with no response. Exhibit number 7 is the property description. Exhibit number 8 is the legal notice as published in the paper. It states application PZ21-10 resub, Fireside Farm, 4-lot re-subdivision, 34 Village Drive. Owner Anthony Silvestri and 16 Reuven Drive, Ledyard, Connecticut. Owners Mario Luis Mendez and Susan Ponta. Application James Bernardo, Land Surveying LLC. Exhibit number 9 is the public hearing notice to applicant. It's dated August 26, 2021. It states, dear applicant, your application PZ21-10 resub Fireside Farm 4-lot re-subdivision, 34 Village Drive and 16 Reuven Drive, Ledyard, Connecticut, was accepted at the Ledyard Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on August 12, 2021. The commission has scheduled a public hearing for this application at 7 p.m. on September 9th, 2021 via remote Zoom. You or your representative are required to attend this meeting to answer any questions the commission may have. Exhibit number 10 is the planner's comments. I will read through these. This is a fairly complex re-subdivision. These comments are dated 9/2/2021. It states the zoning status of the applicant. And it starts existing conditions. 34 Village Drive is a 12.36 acre interior lot with 25 feet of frontage on Village Drive. The lot was created as part of Via Verde Section 1, a conventional subdivision. The site is developed with a single family dwelling and accessory structures not shown on the plan as required and accessed by an existing gravel driveway from Village Drive. Proposal. The proposal is for a conservation re-subdivision of a conventional subdivision that will create 3 new lots, reconfigure 2 existing lots, create 2 open space areas, and extend the existing terminus of Village Drive 270 feet. Proposed new lots range in size from 0.29 acres to 2.13 acres. 2 of the 3 new lots are frontage lots, and the 3rd is an interior lot. The existing 34 Village Drive will be reduced in size from 12.36 acres to 2.89 acres. And the existing lot at 16 Reuven will remain 1.05 acres after lot lines are reconfigured to accommodate changes to Village Drive. There are 2 open space parcels proposed. The first is 3.98 acres with frontage off the extended Village Drive cul-de-sac, and the other is 1.02 acres with access off the shared driveway. Note minimum acreage for open space is 80,000 square feet. Inland wetlands and watercourses. There are significant inland wetlands and watercourses located on the site. The Ledyard IWWC at its August 3rd, 2021 meeting forwarded a favorable report to the PZC for the subdivision itself with the following conditions. Erosion and sediment control measures shall be installed prior to the start of work. 2, Director of Public Works Town Engineer shall approve plans prior to the start of work. 3, future individual lot development shall get additional approval as needed for work within the wetlands. Said approval is valid through 8/3/2023. Ledyard Health District, Groton Public Utilities. The proposed lots will be served by public water and on-site septic systems. Ledyard Health District, in a letter dated March 10, 2021, the LHD approved lots 32 and 34 as suitable, and it has been demonstrated that there are code compliant septic areas. Lot 34 approval is outstanding and pending submittal of a B100A review application to Ledyard Health District. No new approval or communication from Ledyard Health District provided. Groton Public Utilities. Groton Utilities submitted a preliminary review of the proposed plans dated 7/6/2021. They did not approve the plan's water connection and provided 16 comments that the applicant needed to address. We have not received any further review or response from either Groton Utility or the applicant. Director of Public Works Town Engineer. Plans were provided to Steve Maslin. Mr. Maslin is still waiting for the drainage analysis. Fire Marshal. Plans were provided to Jim Mann. No comments provided to date. Staff application plan review comments. The plans submitted as part of this application are deficient and they do not contain all the required information per the Ledyard subdivision and zoning regulations. The following issues needs to be resolved. 1, correct the references to match sheets. Sheet 3 refers to match line on sheet 3. The details on sheet 5 incorrectly refer to sheet 1 and sheet 4 respectively. Zoning compliance chart for conservation subdivision compliance. Detail leaves out 16 Reuven altogether and refers to 36 Village as a frontage lot rather than an interior lot. References to the Planning Commission should state Planning and Zoning Commission. All notes referring to lots containing wetlands should state prior to the submission of a zoning and building permit, Ledyard Health District approvals for all individual lots are also required. Per zoning regulation 14-A4A, the portion of driveways that are not shared must be 12 foot wide. Plan shows 10 foot. Per zoning regulation 14.84C, driveways longer than 400 feet, which is the case here, must be constructed to comply with fire marshal and/or town engineer requirements. 7, grade of the driveway not provided, cannot determine compliance with regulations. Per zoning regulation 14.8C, indemnification note required on final plans and deeds. Number 9, for the interior lot, though a shared driveway may be utilized and is preferred, zoning regulations section 14.6A1, A and C discuss the frontage requirement and access driveway strip requirements, which state that this strip shall allow the construction of a driveway that complies with section 14.8. Exemptions are given to section 14.6A1, B and G, but not 14.6A1, A and C. A compliant driveway must be shown so that it complies with the requirements to create an interior building lot. Number 10, provide a boundary survey plan required per subdivision regulation 842 at a scale of 1 inch to 100 feet prepared by a land surveyor. Number 11, detailed layout maps must be A2 surveys per subdivision regulation 843. Zoning districts not correct on location map. That was number 12. Number 13, per subdivision reg 8.4.3.2G, all existing structures and conditions, including actual topography, not provided for 34 Village parcel. Note on the prior subdivision plan that was withdrawn stated this, and the current topography shown is identical to the prior plan. Number 14, monumentation required every 100 feet along open space parcels and every 50 feet along any access way to the open space parcel. Number 15, draft legal description documents for all lots, easements, land swap for 16 Reuven, et cetera, should be provided. Number 16, front yard setback for an interior lot is 50 feet per 14.6.ai. No exception noted for conservation subdivision. 17, any open space parcel must be at least 80,000 square feet. The second smaller open space parcel is less than the required amount. It is irrelevant that it abuts an open space piece from a prior subdivision. This is a new plan and must be reviewed on its own merits and must comply with the applicable subdivision regulations. The prior planner expressed the same opinion. Number 18, Groton Utility reviewed the plans revised to 7/6/2021 and provide a review memo dated 7/19/2021. The plans were not approved for water. 16 comments were provided to support the conclusion. Unclear if revised plans ever got to Groton Utility, but not revised or no review has been received to date. Per subdivision regulation 852, the subdivision cannot be improved unless there is a written water main extension agreement in place. This cannot be made a condition of approval, as that approval is not within the control of the commissioner applicant. It is controlled by Groton Utilities. Number 19, there appears to be an outstanding enforcement issue regarding a temporary trailer that was approved in 2012 with no renewals on file. The trailer appears to still be on the property. A staff recommendation, the re-subdivision plan set titled Fireside Farm Re-Subdivision, a conservation subdivision, 34 Village Drive, Town of Ledyard, prepared Anthony J. Silvestri, prepared by James Bernardo Land Surveying LLC, dated July 6, 2021, revised 8/3/2021. Submitted as a part of this application is inaccurate and incomplete. Additionally, the proposed re-subdivision does not comply with all requirements of Ledyard zoning and or subdivision regulation as detailed in comments 1 through 19 above. Staff recommends denial of re-subdivision application for said reasons. Exhibit number 11 is a storm drainage analysis, but that does not appear to be attached to the record. Am I missing that on the record, Deb? I see it in the exhibit list, but it does not appear to be available.
I
must have missed uploading it today.
Okay, so we are missing exhibit 11.
Yeah.
And Chairman Woody, I forgot to forward an email. I did just do it from the fire chief. He did actually provide a brief comment if you wanted to read it, or I could.
Yeah, if you have that and you can read that, I would appreciate it.
Yep. Well, this chair is heavy. It says, it's dated September 7th. Good morning, Juliet. Because the plan submitted are for single family detached homes, I cannot apply the Connecticut State Fire Prevention Code, CSFPC. Connecticut General Statute Section 29-291A-1AD refers. With that said, however, in my opinion, it would be wise to amend our regulations to reflect the information out of Chapter 15, which he did attach to the email, of the fire code, which is a nationally recognized standards that I have attached to keep the town out of the potential litigation that could possibly arise in the future should there be a major loss, fire, or worse at these locations. If I can be of any assistance, please let me know. But that was his response to my request for comments.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hodges. Deb, yeah, if you want to pull up that exhibit, and probably sheet 6 is probably the place to start. Mr. Silvestri, can you hear us? I can't hear you. Is there someone who's speaking for the applicant tonight?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, yeah, my name is Jim Bernardo, and I am representing the applicant. I don't know why my camera's not working.
We can see you, actually.
Really? Oh, I
Yes.
can't see myself, so I don't know where I am in relation to the picture. So, okay, well, I'm going to go blind then. I do this blindly. Okay, my name is Jim Bernardo. I'm a land surveyor here in Connecticut. My address is 102A Spithead Road in Waterford, Connecticut. And I'm going to see if I can, let's see. Can you still see me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, well, I can't see myself, so I'm hoping I'm in the middle of the screen.
You're
Yeah,
perfect.
I will address the staff's comments a little bit later. Before getting into the presentation, I just wanted to go over a brief history on this piece of property. Tony Silvestri acquired this property in 2010. We constructed phase 1 of the project, which was 63.6 acres, created 10 lots. It was a conventional re-subdivision that was approved by Inland Wetlands and the Planning and Zoning Commission in 2010. With that, again, we created 10 lots, and we had also little over 7 acres of open space. Section 2, which was designed as a conservation subdivision, was approved by both commissions in 2011. With that subdivision, Lot 4 from the phase 1 development was re-subdivided, and we created 17 lots that created the extension of Hilltop and Stevens Avenue. And we had an additional 10.2 acres of open space conveyed for that. So this is basically a section 3 development by Tony Silvestri of the same piece of property. This is consisting of his property at 34 Village Drive and a small portion of the property, which is 16 Reuven Drive. Both those lots were created as part of Section 1. So again, that's why this is considered a re-subdivision, because it's a re-subdivision of a re-subdivision of a re-subdivision. So this is entitled Fireside Farm. It's a conservation subdivision under your Section 5 of your zoning regulations, which were approved on December 13th, 2018. Again, it's comprised of 34 Village Drive and a portion of 16 Reuven Drive. Both properties contain existing single-family residence and accessory structures. 34 Village Drive is accessed from the existing gravel driveway off of Village Drive, and 16 Reuven Drive, although it actually has its road frontage off of Village, actually gains access off a shared driveway off the end of Reuven. It's not confusing enough. Therefore, it has the Reuven Drive address, but actually gains, like I say, it has its frontage for zoning requirements, Village. The subdivision for this phase, 12.4 acres, and it's served by both municipal water and on-site septic. Well, what Tony Silvestri is proposing to do is take the portion of 16 and a portion of 34 Village Drive and extend the cul-de-sac approximately 300 feet to the southeast. If you could,
We're losing you, Mr. Bernardo.
okay.
Yeah, you're
Picture
cutting
down
out.
just a little. Gosh, can you hear me?
So we heard you there, but you were cutting out. So whatever you said before that, we didn't hear.
Okay, I was asking if they could just scroll the view down a little bit on the sheet. Nope, other way.
So you're looking for up a little bit, the top part of sheet 6.
Yeah, I want to see what the top part of the sheet, please.
There you
A
go.
little bit more. Okay. Well, all right. So you can see there is the extension of the cul-de-sac from the end of Village Drive, now extending it to the southwest to construct a new turnaround cul-de-sac meeting the town's requirements. This will create a total of 3 new building lots off the extended Village Drive and 2 additional conveyances of open space contiguous with other open spaces that were conveyed in Section 1 and Section 2. 32 Village Drive will be a conventional frontage lot with 0.9 acres. 34 Village Drive is also a conventional frontage lot, 2.89 acres. 34R Village Drive, which will be back behind the pond on the property, is and also a frontage lot with 2.13 acres. And then 36, which is up there in the northeast corner, that is going to be a interior lot with 0.98 acres. All 4 lots will share a common driveway. Section 4.8.9 of your subdivision regulations permits up to 5 dwelling units to share a common driveway. Section 1 of the subdivision, the town engineer approved compacted asphalt millings for the driveway surfaces, and we are also proposing that the shared driveway will be 18 feet wide and compacted millings will be used. They're shown on the detail on sheet 7. If you want to take a look at it, although the detail on sheet 7 is actually, it's incorrect, but there's confusion in your regulations, and I'm hoping their new staff will be able to maybe clean up some of these things. The zoning regulations permits a common driveway to be 15 feet, but your subdivision regulations say it must be 18 feet for common driveways in a conservation subdivision. So the detail that's shown there on the center of the paper shows the width as 15. That'll have to be corrected to 18 feet, and hopefully maybe avoid some of the confusion between the 2 regulations. Again, we're proposing 2 new parcels of open space. One is 3.98 acres. If you want to go back to sheet SO3, so if you want to scroll up a little bit for me, please. Okay. So over there on the lower left-hand side, you'll see a rectangular shaped piece with frontage on the new extension of Village Drive. That's one piece of open space for that's 3.98 acres. And it's contiguous with a adjacent piece that was conveyed for open space on section 1. And also to the southwest or to the lower left is a 10-acre piece that was of open space that was conveyed on section 2. In addition to that, we're going to propose a 1.02 acre piece, which is off to the right-hand side. I'm not sure how else to describe it, but it's off on the easterly boundary of the property. This area is 1.02 acres, and it is contiguous with the adjacent 5.8 acre piece, which was conveyed in section 1. I had submitted, I'm still getting used to this. This is actually my first Planning and Zoning Commission meeting online with a Zoom. So I did send some exhibits by email today, and I'm not sure if they were included or not, but one of them was your subdivision regulation regarding open space, section 5.1D5. And reading it, I'll read it verbatim. It says, no contiguous open space area shall be less than 80,000 square feet. And so in our discussions with the current and the prior staff, it was explained that the intent was to avoid small parcels and I'm going to say this in quotes, hodgepodges of open space. That's what we were told within the development. So it's the applicant's feeling that the open space conveyance is proposed contiguous with all the other open spaces that are out there, satisfy the requirement, and that we do not have any open space areas of less than 80,000 square feet. So we are asking for a clarification, and that was one of the comments of staff in the staff's review. We are asking for a clarification of that regulation. I would like to point out that of the original 63.6 acres that Tony acquired in 2010, there'll be 22.2 acres or 35% of the overall property that he acquired. It's going to be dedicated as open space. So as I said, sheet SO5, if you want to scroll down to that sheet, if you would. So in the lower right-hand corner, you can see the extension of Village Drive on that sheet. The water main is going to be extended to the end of the cul-de-sac, where there'll be a hydrant assembly installed there. There's also a current hydrant at the end of the current Village Drive that'll be relocated so that it's adjacent to the road and not, I don't know, about 20 feet off the pavement. So that'll be moved over so it can be of use along the edge of the road. Drainage for the road will be captured by one catch basin at the end of a cul-de-sac, captured by sheet flow, and then it's going to discharge to a level spreader, which is in the open space. One of the exhibits which was previously submitted was a full drainage report. As part of the application, I ran through a quick drainage analysis based on the watershed, just to size the catch basin and the piping. But a full drainage analysis report was submitted to Steve Maslin for his review, prepared by Ed Wenke, PE. And I don't believe Steve has had a chance to completely review that, but the complete report is available. And I also sent it by email today to Deb to hopefully get it online, but I guess it didn't make it to your online listing, but that's okay. From that water main extension, we're going to provide 4 taps, which will service all 4 of the lots. They'll run down the driveway, and then there'll be individual water lines for each house. There are currently underground utilities going down the driveway that serve Tony's existing house, and that will be used for the underground utilities for the 3 new residences that'll be built. We did do site testing with Ledyard. We've demonstrated that each lot can support an on-site septic system. An application for septic plan review was submitted to Ledyard back on July 10th. That was also provided by email today. And I have reached out to Wendy at Ledyard to find out the review status, and I did not get a response, but we did request a review of the plan for all 4 of these lots. And that letter for your record has been submitted as an exhibit as well. Again, that was submitted in July. We're still waiting for comments from Ledyard for the subdivision review as it's currently laid out. Right, I'd like to really just touch quickly again back on the open space issue. It is potentially possible for us to reconfigure the 4 lots so that we have one larger open space that's contiguous with the other open space properties. I think it would affect the solar orientation for the lot layout, which is something that is encouraged by your regulations, as well as privacy. We've been able to, by positioning the houses in the open space in this manner, provides some privacy with the open space locations. Whereas if we have to condense it over onto that larger piece of open space, that would require condensing the lots in a fashion that would reduce some of the privacy. But really, it's going to come down to your interpretation of that particular regulation. Quickly, I'd like to go through the staff's comments, which, by the way, we weren't even made aware of. I just discovered them online today when I was preparing for the meeting tonight. I'm not sure what the policy is as far as getting the comments to the applicant, but like I say, I just discovered this online when I was going through your exhibit list. So obviously, we haven't had a chance to distribute any new plans, but I did want to go over some of the items on here. Obviously, 19 staff comments may seem overwhelming, but most of them are text changes and clarifications that we're looking for from the commission. And obviously, again, waiting for public utility comments and Ledyard Health District comments. So if I could, I'd like to go, Mr. Chairman, through at least the bullet items 1 through 19.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So the comment 1 about the match marks, obviously we've added sheets, we've added different detail sections. So some of the sheet numbers have changed. So that's just a text or some minor corrections that need to be made to the plans to correspond to the match marks. The zoning compliance chart, we can correct the discrepancy with the frontage lot for 36. For 16 Reuven, we've actually not reduced the acreage at all. So I didn't put it on there just for the fact that there's no changes to the bulk requirements for that, but I can certainly add the requirements for that to the zoning compliance chart for 16 Reuven. There was a text. The request was to change the wording from Planning Commission to Planning and Zoning Commission. That's it's just a text change. The wording regarding the lots containing wetlands, that also can be changed, but that is the exact wording we had used for section 1 and 2. So I used the same wording for this application. There was a question about the width of the driveways. Again, that's just a minor change. They were drawn as 10, but they should be drawn as 12. The driveways of longer than 40 feet must be constructed to comply with the fire marshal's and the town engineer's requirements. As your staff just said, the fire marshal's comments just came in this morning, and the town engineer has not provided any comments regarding the driveways either. The grade of the driveway is not provided, so you can't determine compliance. I've driven down that driveway several times. If it exceeds any more than 8% anywhere, I'd be surprised. It's a very flat driveway. I believe your regulations permit up to 12% slope on the common driveway, but I will add that information regarding the slope. The indemnification note, again, that's just adding some text onto the plan set. We can address that. I was kind of surprised with regard to comment number 9 and just trying to follow along with the interior lot shared driveway regulation. I don't have any problem with showing individual potential driveways for each house. My only question would be, how far do we take that? And if they required a wetlands crossing, would we need to secure wetlands crossings to demonstrate that we could put individual driveways in? So again, I would ask for a commission, some feedback from the commission on that. A boundary survey plan obviously can be added. The detail layout maps must be certified A2. All the sheets have a note referring to the survey certification. And I've been told by the Department of Consumer Protection that we do not need to put signature blocks on bound sets of plans, but I can certainly add a signature block for my signature and stamp on each one of the sheets. But there is a note referring to the survey and certification general notes. The zoning district is not correct in the location map. Funny thing is that your town GIS map, I just found out recently, does not depict zoning correctly.
I just noticed that too. Sorry.
Yeah, so Kyle was nice enough to tell me that about a week before he left. So Yeah, so that's where the zoning came from. It came directly from your GIS, and I did not realize that it was incorrect. There was a question about all the existing structures and topography. I can verify that and make sure that that's correct. The monumentation for the open space, there's a note number 10 on the plans that refers you to section 5.1 of the subdivision regulations. And in 5.1, it defines that, you know, the 100-foot spacing between the open space monuments and 50 feet along the access way, as well as what the corner minimum requirements are for boundary monumentation and corners. So that I felt was addressed in note number 10. Legal descriptions for all the lots, easements, and land swap. The open space deeds were provided, and the deed for the road was provided. And we can certainly provide draft documents for each lot, but I don't recall that ever being required for previous subdivisions. But if that's a requirement, we'll draft those up and provide them to staff for review. Number 16 was regarding interior lots with a 50-foot front yard setback. Again, there was some confusion by myself. In your section 5 of your subdivision regulations, it says conservation subdivisions are allowed to have a 30-foot front yard, but I believe it's your zoning regulations say that interior lots must have a 50-foot front yard setback. So again, there was some confusion with the interpretation of the regulation, but a 50-foot front yard setback that certainly can be corrected. The big one is the open space. Again, definition, the clarification on contiguous open space. And I would like to come back to that one for the commission to discuss that a little further. If you look at the comments from Groton Utilities, those were, they're even labeled as preliminary review comments. Plans were recently submitted back to Groton Utilities, and I have not gotten any comments from the water department. So I will reach out to them either tomorrow or early next week to find out what the review status is. And then the final item was the temporary trailer. I did speak with Tony about that tonight, and he's not aware of any violations or an enforcement action, but he said he will certainly reach out to staff who's wearing many hats now and address whatever needs to be taken care of as far as that trailer and what the concerns are. So that is it. Again, I think the big stickler on as far as clarification would be regarding the open space. Obviously, you know, staff has recommended denial. At this point, I would recommend at least a tabling of it until we can get these comments back from the town engineer, from Groton Utilities, and from Ledyard. You know, everybody is spread pretty thin. I know that. We've had some pretty good storms lately. It's maybe holding up Groton Utilities commenting on this. But if nothing else, I would ask that the commission maybe table the application while we compile the rest of the comments from other agencies. So that's the end of my presentation. If I know I covered a lot of information, if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Bernardo. So, and just so you know, my intention is to continue this public hearing to our October meeting. And so I have a list of things that I think are missing from the application right now. And it sounds like some of them you may have emailed over today and we just haven't gotten. But so I didn't see the letters from Ledyard Health District on where they are. And I know some of this is in process. And so, you know, I'm going through this to make sure that we all agree that they're missing so that we can try to get it added. We don't have the town engineer review of the drainage. The same on review of the driveways. We don't have a shared driveway agreement or the water main extension agreement. And so I think we need to get all of those in place before we can move forward. And so I did have a couple of things, you know, so if we look in the shared driveway section of the regulations, we specifically say it can't be, if it's over 600 feet, then something has to be done in order to make sure that emergency equipment can get down it. So whether that's a hammerhead pullout or whatever it is, there needs to be something in place. And so I think we've got to get something, you know, either from the engineer or somebody about, you know, whether or not equipment's going to be able to get in and out of there. Because, you know, just estimating, it looks like the driveway to 34R is probably 1,000 feet long. something on the order of that. So it's,
Well, I think you have to consider too that, and I'm not sure, the actual driveway, the common portion of the driveway ends at where 34R splits off.
The whole
Because at that
driveway
point,
is long, though.
at that point, it becomes an individual driveway. Although, I don't think Mr. Silvestri would have any objection to adding a turnaround somewhere along the way. We do have the turnarounds on, obviously with each individual driveway, but adding something between there and where 34R access, I don't think there'd be any issues with that. We can work that out with Juliet or with the town engineer as far as what the requirements are.
yeah, it struck me as solvable. I just wanted to make sure that, because we specifically call out for that length of the driveway, there needs to be something in place. It seems reasonable. So for the comment around open space, I'll give my opinion, and I'll invite other commissioners to give their opinion. My opinion is that the application needs to stand on its own. And so the creation of open space parcels as a part of this re-subdivision that's less than 2 acres isn't acceptable. And so that larger open space parcel needs to be expanded. The other comment I'll make in that same vein is that the conservation subdivision regulations also give this commission the power to have an influence on where that open space is. And one of the things that I note is the extension of Village Drive actually makes access to the open space over on the larger parcel much easier. So it actually greatly increases the access to that parcel, increases the value of open space accessible from that parcel. And we also specifically call out for the preservation of wetlands and ponds. So, when I look at this plan, one of the things that I would certainly like to see and would think would be beneficial would be making sure that more of that wetlands and more access to that pond is included as part of the open space. So that's how I read it, in my opinion, on that. But I invite other commissioners to speak up there as well. And so that was my first sort of pass through, was just noticing the list of things that look like they're missing from the application. I agree with you. I don't think there's any reason not to continue this for another month so that we can button up these things. I checked the calendar, and our next meeting is 35 days from today. And so we fit within the timeline of being able to continue that without an extension. But I think it's mutually beneficial to not deny this application tonight. I think many of the comments are pretty technical. And in looking at this, I see no reason why this application can't be turned into something that is acceptable. So that's certainly my preference. Questions or comments from other commissioners for the applicant?
Like Cherry, if I could.
Mr. Chair.
Jim, you gave us a reference for the open space that you used, and I didn't write it down fast enough.
It is section 5.1D, like in David. Number 5 says no contiguous open space area shall be less than 80,000 square feet.
Okay. Without the small piece of open space, it appears that your application meets the requirements of the conservation subdivision regs. And one of the other options is to do away with the smaller open space parcel and make it part of 36 and 34. That could make it easier for you, or, make it part of 36 and 34 and give them conservation easements or something, but don't call
No,
it.
according to my calculations under note 19,
Yeah.
the total subdivision area is 12.42 acres, and your conservation regulations require 40% to be open space. So that would be 4.97. And I'm looking at,
Yep. Okay.
this.
My calculator batteries were dead. You're right.
Yeah, D1. Yeah, and the same regulation, 40% of the gross land area.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good. Other comments, questions from commissioners for the applicant? Hearing none, I'll open it up to the public. If there are any members of the public who wish to speak on this application, please unmute your line and speak up. Hearing none. So I think we're in agreement to continue this public hearing to our October meeting. The other food for thought I'll give Mr. Bernardo is that there's also some space to be had, I believe, if 34R is made an interior lot. There's a whole bunch of space in that access way that could probably be reclaimed as well. So I think you've got options there. I think you can make it work. And so I think we can get this to a place that works. Last call for comments from commissioners or staff.
I would just request that the monumentation be shown on the plan, not just identified in a note, so I can stand a chance to check it later. Yeah.
Yep, and so I'll ask Mr. Bernardo if you can try to get that any updated plans to the planner so that she can review it and then get those comments back to you so that we avoid any more, note issues that need to be addressed, so we can have those wrapped up for October.
Okay.
Could I have some clarification from the commission? Do you want me to send comments to the applicants ahead of the meeting? Yes or no? It's go either way if it's a public hearing, so.
I think it's fair when you send those notes out to the commission to include the applicant as well.
Okay, that's fine. So I wasn't clear, so.
No, I know. I know there's a transition with new staff and, I understand.
Yeah. So with that, at 9:31, I will continue the public hearing for application PZ 21-10 Resub Fireside Farm to our October 12th. Is it October 12th, Deb?
Yes.
Is it the 14th, second?
Wait a minute. 14.
14th.
Thank you. So we'll continue this public hearing to our October 14th, 2021 hearing at 7 p.m. Thank you very much, Mr. Bernardo.
Oh, yep. Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is decision and discussion application PZ 21-10 Resub Fireside Farm 4-lot resubdivision. As the public hearing is still open, there's no action on this item. Next item on our agenda, old business A, pre-application informal discussion, Ledyard Center, Attorney Harry Heller. Mr. Heller, are you still with us?
Still here. I've had an interesting evening.
Thank you, Mr. Heller. Thank you for being patient. Welcome.
For the record, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Harry Heller. I'm an attorney with an office at 736 Route 32 in Uncasville, and I'm representing Ledyard Center LLC. I'm probably premature, but I had asked to be placed on the agenda last meeting, and I had requested that Juliet continue it to this meeting because we had not had an opportunity to meet and speak. So I'm going to try to do this in about 5 minutes. But remember, we met, it's probably 18 months ago, about the redevelopment of the Ledyard Center school property. And our client also has an option on the adjoining Holdridge property. And it's in the LCDD, but we feel that the LCDD regulations, and particularly the multifamily regulations in the Ledyard zoning ordinance, do not give us the density and the building configuration and size that we need to make the redevelopment and additional development of these parcels economically viable. So we felt that it would be inappropriate to try to manipulate the LCDD regulations, and that the proper vehicle would be to propose a floating zone regulation that would accommodate the development that our client proposes. And that's what I had prepared and submitted to Juliet informally to review. When we met a couple of weeks ago, she was concerned about the amount of verbiage in the draft regulation, an awful lot of which is procedural rather than substantive. And because you already have adopted one floating zone regulation in town, what we had discussed and what I had agreed to do was to redraft the floating zone section of your regulations where we would incorporate all of the procedural requirements, the content requirements for submission, the evaluation criteria for the commission to act on a zone change into a first section of a regulation that would accommodate potentially future floating zones as well as the one that we're proposing. So that you'd have the procedural section first, and then as the commission in its legislative capacity may adopt future floating zone regulations, those procedural requirements and evaluation requirements would apply to any floating zone that you may have in the town of Ledyard. And we agreed to do that. I thought it was a great suggestion. It would make the regulations more comprehensive and easier to understand for someone bringing a project to the town of Ledyard and potentially utilizing a floating zone vehicle. Because of my workload, I have not even started on that yet. So I don't know that there's any value either to the commission, it's after 9:30 already, or to the applicant at this point to spend time going over what we've done, because it's going to be substantially revised. So that's where I am. I didn't want to ask for a continuance again. I had asked for this informal meeting on the agenda, and I felt I owed it to the commission to at least appear and explain where we are.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that. And so, just so you know, I mean, I share some of the concerns about, with this regulation, about the size of it, and also just the fact that I haven't, since you haven't sort of finalized this up. It would be nice to understand the amount of density increase that this floating zone provides over what's currently allowed in that district. Because my sort of question when I go about this is, how big of a change are we talking about? And I have a suspicion that it might possibly be reasonable for us to change the Ledyard Center Design District regulations to allow this density. And so it'd be nice, I think, for the commission, to kind of be able to line those two up and be able to understand, this is what we currently allow in that district, and that's what this floating zone would allow, so that we can kind of get a feel for the scope of that change.
Bigger issue than density itself is the limitation on the size of the buildings in your multifamily regulations. We've proposed a maximum of 24 units in a building in the draft that I had sent to Juliet. And that's really the minimum that we need to make this project viable.
Okay.
Obviously, another issue that we're dealing with here is, as you know, there is no sewer service to that area now. So our engineer has prepared some preliminary designs, which are convoluted because the Ledyard Center School property has no soils that are suitable for on-site septic. And that's why our client optioned the Holdridge property. So if sewers do not get extended to Ledyard Center, we're going to have to make that work with some very long runs to our septic areas to make that feasible. We've had a lot of discussion. We had a meeting with your WPCA again. It's got to be at least a year ago. And it seemed that there was the potential for that extension. I don't know where that is. We haven't had any further discussions, but all of that is going to affect design.
Yeah, I mean, that plan is still moving forward. Mr. Capon on the commission is also on WPCA, and they are moving forward with, attempts to get that done. But as you know, adding sewer is not a quick project.
Nothing's a quick project.
Yeah. So
in my world, anyways.
Yeah. So it's fair. I understand where you're at, and I appreciate you coming out tonight. And certainly my interest is understanding if we can't figure out a way to approve this without needing a new floating zone. I'm interested in that approach. But I want to give other commissioners a chance if they've got questions or comments for you.
Well, and look, we're certainly not adverse to trying to make some changes in the LCDD regulations if that's the direction the commission wants to go in. But I think it would be prudent to let us put something before you that addresses Juliet's concerns, which I think are legitimate and would be a benefit to the regulations. And if that's not the direction that the commission wants to go, this has to be a cooperative effort, and we're certainly willing to work with you to try to find some common ground and get that property redeveloped.
Absolutely, I agree, and I certainly don't want to be saying don't stop what you're doing. So obviously we're happy to look at what your ideas are there, and if we get to a place where it makes it easier for us to do that sort of thing in our regulations, then we're happy to have you draft regulations. Sure. Other comments from commissioners? I don't want to occupy the time here, so I'm sorry.
Well, just real quick, Mike Cherry. We had added the section on incentive housing zones, figuring that would give us enough flexibility to do just about anything in Ledyard Center or Gales Ferry Center. I guess that didn't work either, Harry.
Juliet and I discussed it. I haven't taken a close enough look at it yet, which I will before I do anything.
I mean, it's another floating zone that can be landed, but that's already in our reg, so it might be easier if we can manipulate that to work.
Sure.
And I agree with Chairman Woody. We always appreciate it when you help us write regs. A lot of our subdivision regs came from across the river, so thank you.
And what I would ask is, let me get back to Juliet with something before you keep me on the agenda. And then I'll ask to be placed back on again on an informal basis. I don't want to submit anything formally, and until we bat this around and see if we can come to some consensus.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions from commissioners? Hearing none. Thank you very much, Attorney Heller. I appreciate you coming.
Nice to see everyone.
Yeah, you too. Take care. Good evening. Okay, next item under old business B, application PZ 21-07 site, 7 Fairway Drive, Ledyard. Owner Jacob Gear for site plan approval for commercial development. Auto repair facility, proposed building and parking area. I will simply note that this was withdrawn on September 8th, so there's no action on that application. Next item under old business C, discussion on new legislation for marijuana growers and sellers. No comments. We're going to talk about these items tonight. I will simply note Justin LaFontaine at SCCOG wrote up a really nice white paper on Public Act 21-1. And so I highly recommend commissioners take a moment to read through that. It's nicely written, really walks through all of the regulations that apply here. Does a really nice job of defining the different categories and stuff. So it's highly informative. Item D, discussion on new legislation. No action this month. we'll keep moving forward with this, but certainly not going to talk about that at this point as we near 10 o'clock. New business, no items under new business. So with that, I'll move on to the approval of minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Mike Cherry.
Second, Tom Bedrow.
Thank you both. Any corrections or changes to the agenda or the agenda to the minutes? I'm getting loopy. Hearing none, I'll call the vote on motion to approve the minutes. I've lost my cheat sheet. Mr. Boudreau.
Yes.
Mr. Cherry.
Yes.
Ms. Scanlon.
Yes.
Mr. Capon.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, so the motion passes 5-0. The correspondence, this is just the town council needed to make a fresh motion for the affordable housing technical grant. So they did that, and that was forwarded on to us. So we did get that grant for technical assistance in the creation of the affordable housing plan. So that is moving forward as hoped. Reports, Ms. Hodges, anything you wish to discuss under the town planner report? Her activity report was submitted.
We are having a slight issue with the short-term rentals, predominantly 6 Esca Drive. I would like some clarification because I've as I go through all the files on the computer, I'm coming across these white papers on enforcement process and whatnot that are much different than what I'm accustomed to. So I guess I need to know, do I have to ask permission before I send a notice of violation or a notice to cite?
So that's town ordinance. So that's not from the zoning commission.
All right, but in general, that is an issue, but there are other issues too. So if it's a regular zoning matter.
I think we had determined, Chairman Woody, was notification that it had been done, but not permission necessarily. At one point,
because I don't want to wait a month sometimes.
Well, at one point we looked at Joe Larkin had sent us a report. We would at the end of the meeting say he was authorized to do whatever he had to clear up those things. Then we got to the point saying, well, why are we telling a zoning official to go do his job?
Right.
And we backed off.
All right, I just wanted to make sure. I mean, sometimes it has to do with budgets and attorney line items and whatever. I mean, that there's not enough money to take 4 people to court, but there's some things that were sort of not followed up on by the previous zoning official that now are sort of time has passed and I want to get back on it, but they would be at that cease and desist phase. So I just wanted to make sure that that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I know there were times when Kyle or Joe would bring things to the commission if they were unsure if they should move forward with something, but by and large, they acted on their own recognizance when they saw violations and they got
okay. These are all pretty straightforward, so I'm not going to go over them all, but the short-term rental thing I think is going to be addressed by the town council at some point anyway. And then at the affordable housing plan, if you have this commission has worked with other companies in the past or planning firms, if you have a preference of who I should request quotes from, I do need to request 3 quotes because of the price, the amount that we were awarded. Obviously, the Council of Governments will submit something, but if you had other people that you're used to, if somebody could just let me know who they are.
Yeah, so as a commission, it's been quite a while since we've worked with a planning firm for something like this. Okay. But if people do have firms that they're comfortable working with, I invite them to let Ms. Hodges know, and so that she can explore them. I think you already had a couple that you were comfortable working with, but any additions would be useful.
I mean, we've used Planometrics before, but I think all the people that they had then are dispersed. Malone and McBroom have done some work for us in the town and other areas.
And Ty Bond, I can never pronounce it. They're doing affordable housing plans right now too, I know.
Yeah, I think maybe that's the big thing. Who's everybody else using, and can we leverage off of what they already have as a template where they just need to plug us in? Especially if they wrote one that got accepted by the state, then
I wrote one that was accepted by the state, so
Well,
happy to
then,
write
you
it. I
know,
just want the data to be filled in, yeah.
do what we do all the time, and that's search for Stonington, replace with Ledyard, recent.
Hey, what about North Store? And then the other thing I'm
It
just,
says North Ledyard, yeah.
yeah. I am working on some cheat sheets and check sheets, and I've gone through the regs with some, you know, pretty thoroughly, but I'm gonna wait to go over that individually first with a few people, and then I'll bring it to the commission as if Chairman Woody agrees. And we have an intern who started, so if anybody has any great ideas for what the intern can do, I would greatly appreciate that. If you have something in mind, I was thinking about having him go sort of inventory available spaces for, you know, with respect to economic development, since I obviously have not a lot of history there. That would be very helpful to me in the Gales Ferry area. I can see the village area obviously here, but he's helping us get the files organized, and then basically just follows me around with zoning stuff, which could probably be pretty boring. So, and I put him on the Tri-Trail Town project too.
How good is he with GIS? Because, you know, it's obvious we've got some problems there.
Oh, thank you for reminding me. We are having Klaus, I don't know his last name off the top of my head. Sorry, I can't think of his name right now, but he is somebody that Liz was initially working with, I guess, but he's going to start the work, you know, sort of not under the under the $5,000 mark. I said that I have to get like we have to be able to get an accurate list of abutters essentially. So the last parcel updates from last year, he's just going to create a shape file. Then I will have to upload it somehow. I'm not sure how that happens. And then we will go get quotes for the rest of the more technical work that needs to be done, if that's okay with everybody. But I really felt it was urgent to just get the tax assessor map done because we use them for plot plans. So that was a priority. So that's happening.
Yeah, just a comment on the intern. One of the other things that has been outstanding for a couple of years now has been the open space inventory.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's been in the works for, I don't know, 18 months or so to update that. And it hasn't quite gotten to the point where it's gotten completed. And so, you know, that's another thing that takes some digging through all the applications over the last 18 months and finding the new pieces of open space and getting them inventoried and that kind of thing.
Yeah, we've actually been working on that, the two of us, and have gotten the subdivision and and the boundary line adjustment, all of those logs, subdivision logs, whatever. So that's all being done, and we have to get that information together for Klaus anyway. So
yeah,
that is on the radar.
Awesome.
But if anybody has any questions, I'm, you know, still drinking from 4 fire hoses at the moment, so I'm doing my best to keep up with. There's a lot of activity. So
yeah, thank you. No zoning official reports. Under any other reports, the final report from the ad hoc committee did go to the town council, and the town council handed that to us. So I think the next step there is we'll get the town planner to review, clean those things up, get them to our town attorney for review, and then we'll take those to a public workshop to start moving forward with that. My guess is, given the way things are going, we will probably plan on trying to hold that public workshop in November. My guess is we're not going to be there in October. And so we'll keep moving forward with that as best we can. WPCA, Mr. Capon, you want to talk a little bit about what's going on with the sewer project?
I'll be real brief on it. Deb, can you bring up the WPCA report, please? But I'll do it quickly for you folks. I realize the hour. Come on. Yeah, the Weston and Sampson report. We're looking at a phased project. The first phase is going to be the 117 extension down to the high school, And then the second phase is the developers would be running a sewer line extension into their own parcels along Fairway Drive. And then in our third phase, we're going to replace there's a nominal 3-inch line from the high school to the wastewater treatment plant, but it's actually 2.44, so we have a bottleneck there. The cost, 1.2 million for the first phase. The final phase, about $900,000. There is a economic or a challenge grant, community challenge grant that we could apply for that would fund 50% of the project. And we could use the Recovery Act funds for the second part of the project. That grant has to be written in the fall. So we've got to get cranking on trying to get that grant written. So this is sort of in progress. Deb, if you bring up the other attachment real quick, knock this one down, because I'm just summarizing it. I'll have more for you next month. So if you go to sewer line diagram, I think it's easier visually if you haven't seen it. And the first phase, these are just the phases. So the first phase, we construct a low pressure line. It's going to be under the pathway. Center phase, the second phase, the developers extend the low pressure line across their own parcels. In the final phase, we replace that bottleneck and then future build out to the west of Route 17. So if you scroll down, Deb, for me, you'll see you guys should be able to see what's going on here. In the initial phase, we're going from Ledyard Center out to the high school. That's going to be what's going to go under the multi-use pathway. In the center phase, we're going to build up that section, and then the final phase, we're going to extend that or replace that 2.44-inch line. Implication for planning and zoning, though, is that while we do have more capacity in the treatment plant, we don't have enough capacity to handle all potential development. As I think I noted in the note, one developer, if they developed a significant amount of housing, could use up all the excess capacity that the treatment plant has. And at this point, there are no plans to expand the capacity of the treatment plant. So that has implications for our plan for the development of Ledyard Center. If we're really what we're really interested in, or partially what we're interested in, is developing businesses and to get foot traffic, then the trade-off is going to be the amount of housing that we can put in Ledyard Center. So that's a brief summary of what we're doing. I'll have more information for you at the next meeting. I don't want to take any more people's time.
What grant did you refer to?
I'm sorry?
What did you say the name of that grant was?
If we scroll up, you'll see it. I'm sorry, if you go to the previous one, it's called the Connecticut DECD Communities Challenge grant.
Funding, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a competitive grant. So it'd be nice if we could get that, because that would pay for half of the cost. If not, we could still use Recovery Act funds and pay for the whole cost, but it'd be nice to be able to pay for half of it.
Tony, I'll send you an email. There's some reason not to carry that line all the way down to pick up the west side of 117 by the Bennett property, and maybe come in on Colby Drive past where Habitat owns some property down to Fairway, and get more bang for the buck and not have to dig all the way down to 117.
Yep, send that to me and I'll forward it on to Ed, and we'll discuss it at our next meeting.
Things that have been in the works for decades that.
Yeah. Thanks, Tony. I appreciate it. So before we adjourn, I have to make a comment that this is Mr. Cherry's last meeting as a planning and zoning commissioner. And so I wanted to thank him for his years of service for the town and his expertise. We really appreciate you having here. I'd like to say that we miss you, but I understand you're not going to get very far away. So
I'm going to take at least one of the fire hoses that that Juliet's drinking from and try and alleviate some of that pain.
Yeah, much appreciated.
And what I told the mayor is, rather than trying to hire somebody to put in the chair, I'll do it for a temporary basis, go hire the right person. And everybody's looking for the right person. And it's just hard to find. You know,
Difficult spot to fill right now.
you get some excellent candidates with zero experience, but a lot of education. And then you get people with no education, no experience, that they want to know what PZC stands for. Well, maybe not the right person. Juliet doesn't need somebody. She needs to babysit a lot right now. She
No.
needs somebody to take files off her desk.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good fit. So happy to see you do that and keep things moving forward.
And we're certainly gonna miss Mike's knowledge. You know, maybe in 500 years, they'll be able to attach electrodes to the side of somebody's head and download specific information. And we could just download a file of Mike's knowledge of planning and zoning and put it
Tom
somewhere.
has been there all along. Tom's got all the same knowledge.
Mhm. Good.
And I appreciate all I learned from you over the last 14 years.
Yeah, but I started looking and counting years and I quit. You know, I was back looking at appointments from the early 2000s and I said, you know I got more of these someplace, but yeah, it was a hell of a ride. I was chair of EDC, I was chair of WPCA, I was chair of planning, I was chair of zoning. And most of those came because I went to scratch my ear and somebody thought I was raising my hand. But I thank everybody for their indulgence and putting up with me for all the years. I'm not going far. If you need something, call.
Yeah, well, thanks again, Mike. We appreciate everything and glad you'll be around in some capacity for a while.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a secret. Then Mary McGrattan let it out at an admin meeting, and I'm going, how'd she find out? I just agreed an hour and a half ago.
Word travels fast.
With that, Mr. Cherry, would you like to make the final motion?
Absolutely. I move we adjourn.
Without objection, we will
We went past
adjourn this meeting at 10:01 p.m. Thank you all for sticking with it. We got a lot done tonight, so I appreciate
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, but we kept Juliet from going to her.
I missed the whole night. That's all right.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.
Deb, did you get the recording?
Oh, I didn't. Hold on. Where? I'm in emojis. Come on, there we go.